All right, we're going to call to order the January 15th meeting of the West Sacramento City Council, Redevelopment, Successor Agency, and Financing Authority. We're going to begin tonight, as we do each week, with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to invite our guests to join the council and staff in the pledge, which tonight, Seamus, why don't you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the council did meet in closed session this evening to confer with our legal counsel regarding one item of existing litigation. That's the City of West Sacramento versus R&L Business Management. It's the case number.
Sorry, R&L Management.
R&L Management. It's the case number noted in item 2 of the closed session agenda that's been published, and also to conduct our periodic evaluation with the city manager. All right, so with that, we're going to proceed to item 1A, which is presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the City Council. As is noted on our published agenda, the council is prohibited by state law from taking action or having an extended conversation about issues that are raised under item 1A, but it is an important opportunity for a public forum. We do ask that anyone wishing to address the council on this or any agenda item this evening to please fill out one of the yellow cards that's available near the front door and turn it into the city clerk. In front of the clerk is a timer that we use to make sure that everyone gets a chance to be heard, and so we ask that all comments be limited to no more than 3 minutes. And also in front of the clerk is a analog flip chart, and that simply indicates which agenda item is currently being discussed. The clerk accepts the yellow cards all the way up to the conclusion of the staff report on any particular agenda item. After that's concluded and the testimony and the questions have begun, she doesn't take any additional speaking requests. So if you're here, say on item 11, and you know that already and you know you want to speak, you might as well get the card in now or as soon as you can, but definitely before the conclusion of the staff report. We also recognize that for some folks, coming out to a public meeting and speaking in front of dozens of people in this room and millions on television and on the internet can cause some anxiety. So we try to maintain a civil discourse in this chamber and ask that there not be any boos or catcalls or even applause or other demonstrations, and try to respect each other and our neighbors. So with that, we have a couple of requests to speak under item 1A. The first is by David Bustamante.
Hi there.
Welcome.
Just go ahead?
You go right ahead.
Perfect. All right, awesome. Sounds good. I'll timer started. Perfect. First, I'd like to thank the City Council and my fellow community members for listening to what I have to say. My name is David Bustamante, and I am, among other things, a resident of Sacramento, a student at Sac State, and a member of the nationwide Sunrise Movement that seeks to mitigate and prevent more catastrophes due to the global climate crisis we face. I'm here today to voice concerns about the possibility of a multi-billion-dollar fossil fuel company moving into West Sacramento. According to West Sacramento City Records and the Sacramento Business Journal, an oil and gas company known as Technip FMC PLC is trying to move into this community. Due to a non-disclosure agreement between elected city officials and the parties seeking this facility, this is the only information we are able to establish. By that, I mean that we as the public only know that this fossil fuel company wants to construct a facility here for reasons unknown to the citizens of the community that lives here. NDAs stands for non-disclosure agreements between public officials and private interests are legal under California law in certain circumstances, and this type of agreement is not a new phenomenon in any way. But there is something to be said about the inherently undemocratic elements of such NDAs because of the lack of citizen accessibility and oversight. While obviously this is a state and potential federal issue, for West Sacramento public officials to agree to such an NDA clearly shows the ability of private interest to dictate what the public can know. I would like to request that more information become available for public viewing. Specifically, I first request what exactly this facility will be and what will be done there is revealed to the public. With the 240,000 square foot building, clearly some kind of production will be taking place. The citizens of West Sacramento should know what a multi-billion-dollar corporation that is contributing to the climate crisis plans to do in their community. Second, I would like to know where in the process the permits that Technip FMC PLC are. By establishing how close we are to the construction of this facility, myself and other community members can decide how we would like to address this issue going forward. Third, I request to know if an environmental impact report of the facility itself has been completed, and if so, what are its findings. The potential negative negative impacts of this facility on the planet are not just in what it produces, but also in the byproducts that will no doubt affect the living conditions of West Sacramento. Last, I request to know if any types of tax breaks or subsidies have been provided or offered to the company to incentivize the construction of this building. The fossil fuel industry is killing the planet, and it should be public knowledge if governments at any level are facilitating this destruction through economic means. These are the 4 requests I have for now. I am not here to say that anyone has malicious intent with the construction of this facility, but we must begin to dismantle the fossil fuel industry at all levels if we want a world where the children of today can grow up healthy and happy. This facility, in the grand scheme, may not be a large factor, but to first not allow the public to know much about its construction and to further potentially approve of it would be a clear sign to this community that short-term profits are more important than its survival. Companies dealing in renewable energy are out there. If the goal of the city is to stimulate economic growth, then it should keep in mind that these types of companies account for a future where West Sacramento still exists. If any of the information I have...
I do have to ask you to wrap up.
Sorry?
I do have to ask you to wrap up.
Oh, thank you for, I was just going to say, if any of the information I have requested is already available, please have an official let me know as soon as possible. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. All right, and Mario Lopez Mendez?
Good evening, Mayor and West Sacramento Council. My name is Mario Lopez Mendez. I'm a Sacramento State student, and I'm here also as well as my colleague on behalf of the Sunrise Movement. In similar fashion, I would like to address the recent development regarding Technic FMC and the presumed construction within West Sacramento city limit. Specifically, I would like to address just one question about the philosophy and the moral principles behind the development in regards to climate change. It's my understanding that Technic FMC is an oil and fossil fuel extraction, exploitation and extraction company. And I would like to, and I understand that there is an NDA currently in effect between the elected officials of Sacramento as well as with Technic FMC. So I understand that any knowledge about that particular plan and its details and specificity is restricted. However, I would like, my question to the council is that for a development within the city that may no doubtly affect its residents, perhaps in a beneficial as well as detrimental way. How was it possible to reconcile the fossil fuel industry development within the city with the philosophy of the Mayor's Committee on Climate Change, of which Mayor Caballon is a part? Which, among other things, seeks to achieve net zero emissions by 2045. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Esme Plasencia?
Good evening. My name is Esme Plasencia. I'm also here with Sunrise Movement, and I'm a student at Sac State. I am here to express concerns about Project Titan. It is very confusing to me how the mayor and people want to make a change to not contribute to fossil fuel emissions, but yet there's going to be a construction of a fossil fuel company. So I just expressing that concern for the West Sacramento or Yolo County residents. So I just hope that the public will be able to have more information about it soon, because I know there's a lot of people concerned, and I just talked to children that are part of 350 Sacramento, and they've been protesting at CalSTRS to divest from fossil fuel. And so I just want to support them and my colleagues, and I just hope that there will be change for the good, and I get that Project Titan will create more jobs, but we really need to be switching to renewable, sustainable energy. So I just wanted to say that, and thanks for listening to me.
All right, thank you. Paul Trudeau.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, I'm Paul Trudeau. I live in Sacramento. I'm your neighbor across the river. And, cognizant that I'm here as your guest, and thanks for having me and listening to what I have to say. I'm here also about this Project Titan. I understand, and I would guess that one of the main motivators for bringing it in, it would be, as I understand, like 300 engineering jobs and many others along with them, which is, in normal times, I think it's a great thing, and y'all have done great work building up West Sacramento. But I think we're not in normal times, and like for example, in November of last year, like 11,000 scientists, not sober scientists, not wild-eyed radicals like me, said we need to make drastic changes to avoid basically global catastrophe, and so. While in normal times, I think, a project like this might sail through, I encourage you to reconsider and think that we might have to do something a little different. It's no foregone conclusion that we'll have a Green New Deal that would bring more socially responsible projects, but I think it's a necessity, and we need to plan for that, and something, building windmills or something like that, that kind of engineering would be a great project for that site. Yeah. I don't want to oversell this, but I think, probably in Germany when they're building the death camps, maybe local officials thought, well, it's a lot of jobs, and didn't think about what the uses were going to be. And, it was a terrible thing, and millions of people died there and in that big old war. And I would just say, it's hard to look at, but I think the stakes are even higher here. I think we're talking about the future of humanity, so I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
All right, Yusuf Elmi. Welcome back.
Okay, the last time I was here, the last time, like this meeting, I was here, and I'm representing for the refugees. I need to open the schools for the refugees, and actually we need a grant for the city, the grant for the schools for the refugees. And the refugees, it's international refugees for all over the world. Even Americans, they included for the refugees. So we need, to open the schools in West Sac, and we need the grants for the schools. And we are, before also the last meeting, I mentioned to you for the schools, and nobody contacted us, and nobody called us, and we need, to open the schools as soon as possible, so we need help from you for the city of West Sacramento.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, so those are the only requests we had on item 1A. I do want to, this is the project, the TechNet project, which is the Schilling Robotics Facility. It's already been reported fully in the press, so there is no NDA. The elected officials of the city have never executed an NDA with this company or any other company. That's simply not how the city, how public officials do their business. This is a project on the port's property that the port has facilitated. It is the relocation and expansion of a company from Davis. And the company is not a fossil fuels company. It is a robotics company that specializes in remotely operated underwater vehicles and other technologies that allow for a variety of economic uses, including in the renewable space. And this region has been trying to develop a broad range, a full range of jobs that are alternatives to the existing fossil fuel infrastructure. These are examples of the sorts of jobs that we've been trying to create on the other side of the economy, not in the fossil fuel space. And in this case, a company grown and incubated in the city of Davis, which I think shares our commitment to combating climate change in a significant way. So I think the project may have been mischaracterized or misunderstood in part because of the broker that was the applicant for the permits rather than the company itself. But there is no non-disclosure agreement with the city's officials, and the project that's being constructed is a significant expansion and retention of jobs. So there will be additional jobs for sure, but it's also people in this region who are already working in the robotics field at that company in Davis that will be able to continue their employment here in the region. So I think it's been a project that was highly sought after within the region, but also an important one for the region to retain, so that both those families and their breadwinners could continue here in the community, but also growing the job base for an alternative set of employment options in our community, our broader regional community in the robotics sector. So anyone has any questions about the specifics of the project, it's all fully available, and it's been fully announced as well. So I don't know, City Manager, did you have anything else to add on that one?
No, I think that.
Okay.
I think that covers it. It's been all reported publicly, like you said. Plans are with the city, Community Development Department now, and we're processing the application like any other project at this point.
Right. That's it. The other thing I would just point out, and we say this quite often, is that the city does not exercise a lot of discretion over individual projects. So I may once we provide zoning for and the permits for someone to build a McDonald's. If McDonald's moves out and Chick-fil-A moves in, and I don't like Chick-fil-A as the mayor, I can't. It's not within my legal or my moral authority to be able to say no to Chick-fil-A. So the city does not exercise a content analysis of every single business that locates or expands in the city. That's not unique to our city. That's simply how all cities function. And in a particular project can be frustrating, but in general, if you are a business owner or a nonprofit person, or you own your own home, that the prospect of having government do that should be frightening in terms of the city government making all of those decisions on a case-by-case basis, looking at your application. And so the city's land use controls and powers are categorical as opposed to project by project in most cases. It's a different issue when we're talking about city subsidies, but in this particular case, we're talking about a land use decision. So, and then just for our friend from the refugee community, just to be very clear, the city doesn't make grants. We go out and beg for grants from other people, but we don't make any grants at the city of any significant scale to support schools or otherwise. And so it's unlikely that, and we don't have a grant program, we don't have a grants office or what have you, which may be the reason why there hasn't been any additional outreach on that question. So, all right, so that brings us to item 1B, which is council communications and assignments. Are there any reports of the communications this evening? Councilmember Guerrero?
Just have a couple of reports. Last month, December 18th, I participated in Yolo County's Mental Health Services Act Community Engagement Work Group. They're preparing for the next 3 years of their expenditure plan. And I shared with the clerk what was shared in the PowerPoint presentation over the last year of community stakeholder meetings on what has been identified as potential programs. And the next meeting is going to be in January 30th in Woodland. And the clerk has the details to share with you, encouraging everyone here to participate, taking a look at maybe a combination of substance abuse and mental health treatment programs to work closely with our first responders and in our schools. On January 13th, the League of Cities Sacramento Valley Division Board of Directors convened, and Councilmember Melissa Schuster was appointed as Division Secretary. Next week, and we have Charles Anderson, our representative, regional representative here today with us. Next week, the League of Cities will have their policy committee meetings and the mayors and new council member conference, plus the annual welcome for all council members on January 23rd between 5 and 6 p.m. at De Vere's Irish Pub in Sacramento. So that's where all council members get together and convene regionally. So just go hang out and get to meet our other fellow council members. There was a brief presentation about Grass Valley City Council member Lisa Swarthout and Jan Arbuckle's meeting with Governor Newsom on his week-long homelessness statewide tour on successful programs. The tour demonstrated the model program there to serve the unsheltered. And last week, the governor announced the creation of New California Access to Housing and Services Fund in an executive order. So this was part of an extension of that, and he had additional visits in other parts of the state. The executive order was included in the 2021 budget to fight homelessness, which includes $750 million in the new fund and a major new investment to reform Medi-Cal, combining mental health and physical health treatment. So, trying to have a more robust treatment program to serve the unsheltered. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Ledesma.
Thank you. Just a couple of things on the 6th, the beginning of the year. I was very proud to represent West Sacramento YCTD at a news conference that kicked off with Art Regional Transit, their new Route 142, which provides airport service out from downtown Sacramento to the airport, and their Route 142. YCTD has had service to the airport for a good 20, 30 years, almost.
20.
20, I was saying, that's the 90s, 97, I think it was, yeah. And so they've had service for quite a while, but it was not as frequent, but RT was able to provide a new route, Route 142, and it was a partnership for us in coordinating routes and making sure the service was available. So during the peak times, it's airport service from downtown Sacramento to the airports every 20 to 30 minutes. I took it last week on a trip, business trip I had, and it's super convenient. So I urge everybody to try it. If you happen to be going the remainder of the month, both YCTD and RT have waived fares this month. So you can take a free ride to the airport and try the service. And again, it's really convenient, and I got a lot out of it. So again, it was great to be there with board members, and the new board chair for RT, Steve Hansen. So it was good for YCTD. And then this past Monday, we had a YCTD meeting. Just a couple of updates there. One, we did have an audit, return to performance audit, on-time performance. And there was no surprises in there. It was really a good audit in terms of finding the things that we've been seeing: ridership down, on-time performance challenged, and just what every transit agency is seeing across the region. But it came back with some good recommendations, and we have decided to take some action with that with the staff. We also have an update on this comprehensive operational analysis, which is being done. So we're going to use that as a little bit of a launching pad to really take a closer look at some of these routes coming up and making sure we can have transit, refine our transit. And so the COA is expected to come out next month, and they will be reaching out to our staff. I've asked that they make all the data that that led to some of the recommendations that we're making on routes, on where we can. They heard loud and clear from this council as well as from other councils. Frequency is important, so that will become versus coverage. So getting better at the routes we're going and where they're most used. So again, we got a little bit of an insight into it, but a lot of it will come out next month. And they are going to make a concerted effort to make the data available, make a concerted effort to make the rounds to not just the city council, but to our commissions that we have here that are interested in those things. So I'd ask staff to follow up on that as well. So again, it was a good development, and that's about all I had on the transit side.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Sandin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Valley Clean Energy met on December 12th and again on January 9th. A primary focus of both meetings was to establish guiding principles related to the potential acquisition of PG&E's local electricity distribution system. And the basic tenets that we agreed upon, and this is my summation of taking a longer document, are reliability, affordability, transparency, preservation of labor agreements, local governance, and environmental leadership. And the Yolo Solano Air Quality Management District Board of Directors met on January 8th, and we heard a set of information reports on California biomass facilities, the Yolo Solano AQMD's asbestos program, and the Clean School Bus Program. I was also appointed to the district's Budget and Audit Committee at that meeting. A copy of the 2020 Clean Air Student Calendar was also shared with the board, and the board had served as judges for the calendar, and I'm pleased to report that 2 months, October, here's October, and December are students from West Sacramento and they're third graders from Our Lady of Grace School. So I want to share congratulations to Samantha and Naomi at Our Lady of Grace School for their winning contributions. And then earlier today, Yolo County Housing met to select a chair and a vice chair. Commissioner Gary Sandy, who's a supervisor for Yolo County, was selected as chair. I was selected as vice chair of Yolo County Housing, and we also conducted an evaluation of the CEO today. And then earlier today, Reclamation District 900 met. We reviewed district finances. We appointed 2 board members to the WASAFCA board, Trustee Ledesma as primary and Trustee Orozco as alternate. We approved a funding agreement between the state and RD 900 for operations and maintenance as a part of the Flood Maintenance Assistance Program. We heard updates on the Levee Patrol Road Rehabilitation Project, the Blacker Canal, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers discussions regarding jurisdiction over the main canal and the navigation levee, RD 900 oversight of MA4. We also heard updates of WASAFCA projects and RD 900 owned property at 889 Driver. We got a lot done in a short period of time tonight. That's the report. Thanks.
Terrific. You didn't report on yesterday's celebration either, did you?
No, I didn't talk about that or the basketball court and
Well, I think we were
a lot of things going on.
Basketball court, but just to congratulate the community, our team at the West Sacramento Community Center and at the West Sacramento Home Run program, both of which were honored yesterday. Yesterday was the celebration of the 10th anniversary of the Sacramento City College campus across the street, and they chose to honor some of their key partners, including the community center and the home run. And it was a lovely ceremony, and our teams from both, as well as the school district and the Yolo Food Bank. And it was a really special moment to reflect on the incredible progress that has been made in the community for education and for youth, and then some of the great stuff that's to come. So, congratulations. With Councilmember Ledesma's appointment to the RD 900 board as a primary representative of the Board of Trustees of that organization, I would like to now appoint Councilmember Orozco to be the alternate to Mayor Pro Tem Sandin on the council's behalf, as well as RD 900. And I've discussed it with her as well, so I'd like to make that appointment and ask if there's a motion to approve it.
You need a second?
No.
Oh, okay.
We may not even need a motion, but and motions never hurt anybody here. So, okay, so it's been, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you, and thanks for agreeing to serve. All right, we have no appointments this evening, so we're going to proceed to item 2, which is a presentation by West Sac Play of funds raised for city parks.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Tracy Michael, Parks and Recreation Director, and I'm very excited to be introducing this item tonight. West Sac Play has been a key partner for the city and specifically for the Parks and Recreation Department in helping to improve recreation opportunities throughout the community. What started as a group of community members who worked to raise money for new play equipment at Bridgeway Lakes Park has now grown and evolved into an established organization that works to organize events throughout the year to continue raising more funds for our parks, now focusing on installation of shade structures over our play equipment. Thanks to the generosity of West Sac Play, we were able to install 2 new shade structures this past year, and there were significant structures both at Summerfield Park and at Westfield Park. And so I just want to personally say thank you to West Sac Play, and speaking of their generosity, would like to invite Haley Orr, the president of West Sac Play, to come up as she has even more generous news to share.
Thank you, Mayor and council members, so much for having us this evening and all your continued support throughout the years. Much to having all of you at our Farm to Park event this year, and we've also seen your faces throughout the year at all of our other events. So thank you so much for your added time to include in that. I'd like to introduce myself as the new president of West Sac Play. My name is Haley Orr, and I'm a proud member of the community as well as a small business owner offering pre- and postnatal fitness, and so I love our park system here that we have. We're so happy for your continued support, not only to myself, but the program and the park. Sarah Kirby-Gonzalez and myself are here to present, on behalf of West Sac Play, $10,000 to go towards shade coverings in the coming year. We're looking forward to your continued support throughout 2020 with our events such as the Night Splash, a 4th of July bike parade, Farm to Park, and Cocoa with Santa. So to find out more on that, go ahead and head to westsacplay.org or find out more on our events at Facebook. So.
We're going to accept a check?
I think we'd like to take a picture
Okay.
of the council accepting the check.
All right, let's do that.
Okay.
All right, 1, 2, and 3. Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Just on behalf of the council, I want to say thank you to Haley and to Sarah and to the whole West Sac Play organization and team and family. And if you landed in West Sacramento from Mars or East Sacramento and you saw the profound, the depth and the scope and the heart and the organization and the commitment and the stamina and just the joy of West Sac Play, you would think West Sac Play was like the Rotary Club or the Chamber, something that had been in our community for generations and generations and generations, and it hasn't been. It's been the dream and the labor of love of a group of mostly women who had a small vision and then saw the chance to make a difference, not just in their own neighborhood and community, but throughout the entire city for folks who could use a little support and help. And in doing so along the way, not just raising money, but also through the process of doing that, bringing people together and raising awareness and raising a sense of connection, neighborhood to neighborhood and person to person, and fun and creativity and so much more. So just thank you so much. We really appreciate the fundraising and the support through the generosity of West Sac Play through the check, but really it's your leadership and your example in the community that is inspiring so much more. And we really, really very much appreciate it on behalf of the children and all the neighborhoods of the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the consent agenda, which is items 4 through 14. We do have another presentation, sorry, Charles. $10,000 a $10,000 check in front of me always throws me off. All right, so next we're proceeding to the presentation of the California League of Cities Helen Putnam Award for the West Sacramento On-Demand Rideshare Program, and I was going to ask at the appropriate moment, Councilmember Ledesma as the leader of this project, and Mayor Pro Tem Sandine, our delegate to the league, to join you for the award presentation.
Sure.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Cabolden and council members. Thank you for allowing me to present the Helen Putnam Award for Excellence to the City of West Sacramento this evening. I'm Charles Anderson. I'm the Regional Public Affairs Manager for the Sacramento Valley Division of the League of California Cities, of which the City of West Sacramento is a member of. Before presenting this award, I would like to briefly explain the significance of the person the award is named for. Who was Helen Putnam? Helen Putnam was a mother, a school teacher, a principal, mayor, and county supervisor. But most of all, Helen Putnam was a person who viewed meeting one's potential as the measure of success. Excellence to Helen Putnam was shown by someone who did their very best. She was as supportive and loving of people who did their best as she was of people who did the best. To the League and to California cities, Helen Putnam defined excellence. The award for excellence is given in her memory. Established in 1982 by the League of California Cities, the Helen Putnam Award for Excellence recognizes outstanding achievements by California cities. The Helen Putnam Award for Excellence is awarded each year in 12 categories to cities that incorporate innovative solutions to community needs or improve efficiency in the delivery of services. For 2019, I present the Helen Putnam Award in the category of Public Works, Infrastructure, and Transportation to the City of West Sacramento for its on-demand rideshare program. West Sacramento On Demand is an innovative public transportation program deployed in partnership with private ride-sharing company Via Transportation Incorporated. At its core, West Sacramento On Demand brings convenience and a high-quality user experience to the previously underserved or transit-dependent, while preserving critical social functions of public transit by safeguarding accessibility across ages, incomes, and abilities. Via's state-of-the-art technology balances speed of service with optimized vehicle occupancies using a smart algorithm to predict demand and pick up multiple passengers along the way. The program has improved mobility for all, and especially among seniors, youth, low-income households, and female riders. Congratulations for this award, and thank you for setting an example for other cities to follow.
Our two colleagues are going to join you. So Councilmember Ledesma is both as the chair of YCTD and also as the driving force here within the city around this project, as well as Mayor Pro Tem Sandine, who's our official representative to the league. But Charles, thank you very much for joining us this evening for the presentation. All right.
And I want to take a moment to thank the California League of Cities for the recognition and tell you a little bit also what happened at the conference when we received the award. There's a handful of other cities that were also recognized for different kinds of programs. But that day, Sarah Strand, who's here with us, and Treasurer Acevedo, they ended up working in the Expo Hall, which is an enormous hall at the League of Cities conference. And we were able, I sat with them, it was actually on Sarah's birthday as well, as I recall, when we received this award, and we just kept talking with city staff and city council members and mayors were coming up to us talking with us about this program and how transformational it was. So we were celebrating and we were educating, and it was a really great evening. So thank you so much for the recognition. And, we have received a lot of awards for this, but I think from all the other cities doing all great things, to have ours kind of rise up, it was really gratifying. So thank you so much.
Councilmember Ledesma.
And as well, thank you very much for the recognition and for the award. And I would like to convey a couple of things. First is thanks to our terrific staff, Sarah and the team. This started from a very distinct need that we found in the city a few years ago and brought to this council, and they supported that we needed to kind of change the direction and look for more mobility options. And thanks to our great staff and energetic staff and ambitious staff, we kind of arrived at this solution, and it has turned out to be something phenomenal that gets this kind of recognition. But I would tell you that I think the part that as Mayor Pro Tem Sandin brought up is that it has fundamentally changed people's lives in this community. And it's very rare, at least in the 10 years I've been on council now, that you do something that does. And you get to witness it as people of all ages board the VIA and feel welcomed and have social interaction with other riders, as I have, of a woman going to her haircut appointment at Supercuts, or talk to the seniors across the street at the community center who have some freedom and independence at long last. And our favorite story is the woman who got to buy ice cream for the first time. And but it's those kind of incidents. I got a text the other day about the rows of VIA coming up to high school and kids getting to school on time and having that freedom as well. And as a city, I think it makes us all proud that people can have that experience. And so thanks to the staff, thanks to for recognizing it, thanks to this council who continues to support it and keeps looking for ways to innovate to bring those kinds of benefits to our community. So thank you very much.
I would just add, I think I haven't been in office long enough to have known Helen Putnam, but I think she'd be very proud of this service in all the dimensions that you mentioned, Charles, of who she was and what she thought it meant to be a public servant and what it meant for a city to serve its people. There's the service itself, but I think the other thing that's important to reinforce for the culture of our city and for our organization is how we got to this point. Why are we the city that's being celebrated for this? Why did this not appear first in some other city or in 10 other cities? Because once it's operating, you look at it and say, well, duh. Why didn't somebody think of this before? But why it had happened here, to some extent, is a reflection of an innovation mindset that occurs here. And the process of innovation that Mr. Robinson and Ms. Strand and others in the city organization helped to shepherd around how do we find and shape new ideas that are centered around the needs of people. Not necessarily having a public meeting and asking for, what do you think? Because nobody came up with this idea in public meeting. Nobody thought it was a great idea, actually, when we were first talking about it. There was no testimony in favor. Yes, that sounds perfect. Please do that. We had to do it. We had to take some chances on by understanding what people's real needs were and then offering a service to see whether they would like it or not was a thing that many cities don't do. They spend 2 years studying and asking people's opinions and then do nothing. And here in West Sacramento, that's not the case. So it's an example not just of the outcomes that have been extraordinary through this project that have been already laid out, but also the how we got to that point and the appetite in the city for taking a few chances in order to do something wonderful is something that's remarkable here. I'm presenting on this project at the U.S. Conference of Mayors next week for the 5th time in a row. In part this time because the mayor of New York said he missed the presentation the last time and he really wants to hear about this project. It's caught that much fire around America. So thank you so much. It means a lot, as the Mayor Pro Tem has said, to come from the organization that represents the other 470-odd cities that just like us of every size, our peers, to recognize the accomplishment and the impact and the inspiration that it's provided is so gratifying and helps to put the wind in our wings for the next one. So thanks so much for joining us tonight, Charles.
Thank you, Charles.
All right, now, consent agenda, okay, Mr. Ledesma, okay? All right, consent agenda, items 4 through 14. We don't have any memos from the manager on any changes. Are there any items to remove or for separate question or comments? All right, is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, you do not have a memo at your place?
Oh, I'm sorry, I have comment cards, you're right.
Okay.
I thought you said memo, you're right. I guess it didn't strike my mind that that would be on consent, this item. Okay, so
Wait, I am looking for a memo on a particular item. There's not one up there?
on item 11?
No.
No, we don't have any memos.
No, we don't.
However, I'm going to pull item 11 off of consent. Let's take it up separately. We have a lot of requests for public comment on that, so let's dispose of the consent agenda first, and then we'll take item 11 up as soon as have completed that. So is the memo that's coming, it's on item 11? Is that?
7.
Oh, item 7, okay. All right, give us a second then. All right, so I'll just read the memo. So you have copies for the whole council? Okay, it's simply indicating that there's a numeric error in a portion of the agenda report.
Thanks.
An item that's $24 should be $45. All right, so other than item 11 then, with that change to item 7, is there a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Sandin and seconded by Councilmember Orozco that the consent agenda minus item 11, but with the modification to item 7 be approved. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. That will then move to item 11, which is consideration of second reading and adoption of ordinance 20-1, amending chapter 9.30 of the municipal code relating to limitation to access to tobacco products. So we're moving to item 11 solely for the purpose of public comment, and we have several requests to speak on this item. The first is by Tulia Laster. Tulia, I get this wrong every time you tell me.
Okay, it's no problem at all. Good evening, Mayor.
I couldn't say my
and
own name until I
councilmembers.
was 8 years old.
I understand. I have that same issue. I am Twyla Laster. I am the project director for Saving Our Legacy, African Americans for Smoke-Free Safe Places, also known as the SOUL Project, and we're funded by the California Department of Public Health Tobacco Control Program to educate and advocate for healthy smoke-free communities in 14 Northern California counties with our colleagues with Yolo County as well. So tobacco and vape companies have evaded the FDA ban on flavored cigarettes by adding flavors to little cigars, blunt wrappers, vape pens with mint, candy, fruit, and alcohol flavors that continue to attract kids in response to 2 years of skyrocketing rates from youth use of e-cigarettes. The FDA did take a small step to restrict e-cigarette sales by issuing guidance prohibiting the sale of cartridge-based e-cigarettes that are not flavored with menthol or tobacco. And this means that as of February 6th, many flavored e-liquid pods, including Juul or Juul-compatible products, will no longer be sold legally in the U.S. However, this guidance is not a comprehensive response to the epidemic of youth use of flavored products. It does not include restrictions of all flavor like mint. It does not include all e-cigarettes, and it does not apply to other tobacco products such as cigars. In the absence of the FDA action at the national level, as I mentioned before, 50 jurisdictions in California at the local level chose to adopt ordinances that restrict the sale of menthol and flavored tobacco products to address predatory marketing by these industries and discourage youth from purchasing these products to help those who want to quit. The marketing of mint and flavored products towards kids, those living at or below poverty level in communities of color, has become an epidemic where youth and victims are reporting acute lung diagnosis similar to coal and metal workers in weeks and months of use. Tobacco and vape companies continue to replace the 3,000 smokers that die each day. They must target kids and other marginalized communities. It has been reported that vaping, or the vaping industry, attempts to act like they care by offering scholarships now to the youth, who are the very youth that they are hooking with these products, if the youth write essays on why it is positive to use these products. This is another tactic to influence these youth and young adults who eventually will use and then become addicted and potentially die from these deadly products. So since the last city council member, 2,300 people have been hospitalized and 57 deaths have occurred. So I thank you very much for your consideration. And again, we are available to assist you with any further questions.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Nordine Kalhi?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. First of all, I want to thank you guys for having us here and inviting us to speak in front of you. Respected Mayor and Council members, I'm a local retailer that sells flavored vapor products. 80% of our revenue comes from the flavored vapor products. Us retailers want to work with the city and accept the changes that whatever the city wants to make with the ordinance. It's understandable. As a parent myself, I wouldn't want any youth, my kid including, to indulge in any type of flavored or any type of products. So yes, we want to work with the city council and accept the changes. Average retailers have anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000 worth of inventory, which can comprise up to 60% of flavored tobacco products. The time frame given for the proposed ordinance to take effect will be very little time for us to clear out our inventory. A lot of us retailers won't be able to survive the flavor ban. All we are asking is an extension of time to help sell our inventory and negotiate with our landlords to help us out of our lease, which can be very, very hard. All of this takes time. I once again humbly request the mayor and the city council to at least give us 8 to 12 months to clear out our inventory. City of Sacramento, which passed a similar ordinance, gave their retailers about 8 months. I urge you all to at least give us that much time. Also at the state level, Senator Hill is also pushing a bill which is going to ban all the flavored vapor products, which will make it uniform all over California. Now the businesses will be able to sell flavored vapor products. What this is going to do is not create unfair advantage. So right now, for us being in West Sacramento, what it's going to do is it's going to pretty much shut our doors. So that time frame will help us for the state bill to pass, and there is a slight possibility we will be able to survive and come up with different ideas to where we can still continue conducting business without selling any flavored vapor products. Again, all we're asking is to give us retailers time. I know City of Sacramento also gave their retailers about 8 months. My humble request is to at least give us 8 to 9 months, so that way at least we can clear out our inventory. And also, like, some of us won't be able to stay in business, so we would have to talk to our landlords, and hopefully they'll let us out of our leases, because a lot of our retailers have given their personal guarantees on leases. And sometimes, it can be hard because some retailers, this is their only source of income. So filing bankruptcies and all that can be hard on any businesses, because, it's having a business is not like a 9-to-5 job. You pretty much give it all of your time, all of your energy. It's almost having like a baby. So it can be very, very difficult situation. But like I said, we want to work with the city. All we're asking is to give us some time. Thank you again, Mayor. Thank you again, Council.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Sohail Chaudhary?
Chaudhary, yeah. Good evening. I'm also a local business owner. I don't know if any of you guys have owned retail businesses in the past, small businesses like we operate. We carry a lot of inventory, and it's sometimes hard to keep up with all the stuff that we have. So, as Nordine pointed out, we have anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000 worth of inventory in store, of which about 60%, like he said, is flavored tobacco. All we're asking is an extension of time so that we can get through that and adhere to your guys' ordinance. That's all we're asking. Thank you.
Thank you. Sanjita Kelkar?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Sangeeta Kelkar. This is my classmate, Tiffany Phipps, and I'm 16 years old, a junior at River City High School. I'm a member of Yolo County FNL Youth Council, here to address the ban of flavored tobacco in West Sacramento. As a high school student, I constantly see my classmates vaping in bathrooms. 80% of people who have used tobacco start with flavored products. These statistics are scary, knowing that my friends who constantly use flavored tobacco have a 90% chance of developing lung cancer. I do not want to see more of my classmates go down this dangerous path. Knowing this, I would like to support the ban of flavored tobacco in West Sacramento. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Samarjit Mali?
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Samarjit Mali. As I have stated in previous meeting that I'm a retailer and tobacco distributor in West Sacramento. I'm also a board member of APCA organization in California and also speaking on behalf of many other retailers today. I personally have been doing business in West Sacramento for the past 17 years. 17 years as a retailer and 10 years as a tobacco distributor cash and carry on Industrial and Enterprise Boulevard. In my experience, the city of West Sacramento has always promoted and protected small business and always welcomed small and large businesses in the Sacramento metro area. In the past 17 years, industry have changed a lot. As consumer and a proud parent, I would not have my kids to be addicted to tobacco. As a parent and responsible retailer, I would take any step to prevent kids obtaining tobacco or other adult-only products. As we have fought hard to establish a middle ground for adults who would like to enjoy their flavored tobacco and prevent kids having access to flavored tobacco. Today, I'm asking the Honorable City Council to establish a middle and fair ground to protect local businesses, the right of adult smokers, and prevent kids from accessing tobacco. First of all, I would like our tobacco and business license to be grandfathered so our licenses are transferable. This will protect my 17 years of hard work, my retirement, and my business goodwill. Otherwise, my 17 years of hard work and retirement will be vanished. Second, I would like the city to protect adult smokers' First Amendment rights, allow them to smoke menthol tobacco as they choose to, and also allow tobacco store to be adult-only establishments. These establishments will allow only adult smokers to purchase any flavor or product as they choose. Third, I'm requesting the city to allow up to 12 months to clear out inventory. As my fellow members, they asked for 8 to 9 months. I think that would do too. That would also work. And if we get at least 8 to 9 months to clear our inventories of flavored tobacco products. As a retailer, we are tied up in leases with our landlords. If the city chose to establish a complete flavor ban, we as a small business, we will lose everything overnight. In conclusion, I'm hoping the city of West Sacramento will establish a middle ground ordinance that protect the rights of adult smokers, prevent kids and teens from accessing adult products, and protect small businesses like mine. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Kenny Chakara?
Good evening. I'm a local small businessman, and I also represent several other local businesses. Thank you for everything you do, because this town has been welcoming, like Rocky just said, you welcome all small businesses. So I would like, just remember 4 or 5 items that I'm going to represent. We're not fighting the ban, we're not doing anything what you have already done. One of the requests we're asking is time for these retailers to sell off their inventory, because like they said, average right now, you're looking between $15,000 to $30,000 minimum of flavored product. Most wholesalers, most manufacturers are not giving refund. They are not taking the product back. So City of Sacramento passed the law on April 16th, and they gave us till December 31st, 260 plus days. So we request if you can do at least 250 plus, because there's no way these guys can get rid of the inventory unless you want your local business people to be losing anywhere approximately $30,000 worth of product. So that's number 1 point. Number 2, I just pulled up on Google. It says the city of West Sacramento, your population is 54,000 plus. Average age between 18 and 24 is 9.1. So that brings around 4,000 people that we are really concerned about right now. And as the opposition, they represented that average in California, 3% of those youth under 21 are smoking. So you take 4,000, you take 3% is 120. I'll even say there's 150 persons who are being affected, but we're punishing 90% of your population by passing this ordinance. So one of the things that I would request that you take away the moratorium, because if you're going to welcome businesses, 7-Eleven, a.m., p.m., mom and pop stores like me, we can't come to City of West Sacramento because we will not be able to get a tobacco license. So if I can't get a tobacco license, 25% of my sales in average convenience stores is tobacco. So if I can't have 25% business, most of us work on 3 to 9% net profit. So I apparently can't come to the City of West Sacramento because you're saying, nope, moratorium for those 150 people. You're putting a moratorium on all local businesses, convenience stores, gas station, mom and pop, liquor stores, tobacco shops from coming to City of West Sacramento. Other point I would like to make, yes, we all have challenges. Am I getting close? I guess I don't have challenges. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so those are all the comments that we had under item 11, which would otherwise have been on the consent agenda. Are there any additional questions or comments from the council? I don't know if I didn't hear any policy questions for the police department or the staff that were involved in the preparation of the item. But is there any other discussion by members of the council? Mayor Pro Tem Sandine?
I am not sure if this is relevant. I'm curious about the state and federal policy as it may relate to ours, because I know there's a discussion. I know we can operate out of that, but I didn't know if something will be subsumed by that. So I don't know if you have background that would be pertinent to our discussion.
I think the most relevant background I can add for now is that at the state level, there was an effort last year to do a statewide ban. It did not advance to the governor's desk. I know that effort is being renewed this year. However, there's no guarantee that it'll have a different outcome. So our recommendation at this time would be to proceed with the local option, and as the state process evolves, we would adapt to it down the road. But as of right now, there's no guarantee that will actually be the outcome.
And there was a federal discussion as well.
There is, and I'm less familiar with that piece, so I prefer not to try to address that. But it is a discussion at the federal level as well. So I don't know if you know.
Okay. All right, that was my only.
Other questions or discussion?
I do have one suggestion. In the recommended action, I'd also like to consider, we don't have to formally put it here, but I also like to consider looking at appropriate intervention among high school students to prevent the use of
flavored tobacco products. So look at ways to do more outreach and prevention adverts as well, as we are collaborating with the Yolo County.
Okay, I think we would need some specific direction. We can certainly, make sure that we're coordinating with the county and school district on whatever outreach efforts are going on, but the police chief has something to say to that.
Just in response to that particular point, part of the partnership with Yolo County actually includes an education piece. The county's tobacco folks are already involved with some of the education components in the schools. This would actually formalize that more so with West Sacramento.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right. Yeah, I don't have any additional questions. I mean, the testimony around the impact on small business, I think is, for me, is definitely heard. And we've worked hard in the community, even from before we were a city, to be a place that's strongly supportive of small business. And there are so many small business entrepreneurs in our community from all sorts of different backgrounds and places who have put everything on the line and who are making incredibly small margins under really challenging risk and market conditions, and they're working 24/7 year-round, just trying to keep the business open and put whatever they can on their own dinner table for their family. So it's very much heard, and the process by which public policy changes and our demands for instant change, and then the impacts that it has on people who are already doing the other thing it's a constant conundrum of government. And it's one of the reasons why I'm a progressive that's kind of an advocate of some limited or at least humble government, that we can't walk around wanting to pass rules and laws and tell people what to do every 5 seconds, because it changes and we change. And I've certainly lived a good part of my life with government telling me that I wasn't really a human being in a lot of ways, and I'm very careful about government reaching quick moral decisions and then imposing them everywhere. And I think in a lot of circumstances, I would have voted for a longer period. But I'm just not comfortable doing that in this one. And partly it was the testimony even of some of the small business owners who said, and it struck me over and over again, it's like we need this time to be able to dispose of our inventory, and as a parent, I wouldn't want any of it to fall into my own children's hands and into their lungs. And that's the challenge, is that what happens in this period is that, the unloading of the inventory, it goes somewhere. And to the extent that is reaching children, it's not an outcome that for me at least I can live with. So I'm very sympathetic, and in most cases I would, all of the issues that have been raised, I would be on the side of the store owners who are just trying to make it and who didn't know 6 months ago that this was going to be happening. But the human cost, is too high in this particular case, and so I can't change I'm still in the same place I was at the last meeting in terms of moving forward, understanding that the challenges that are being faced that are very, very real, but that in this particular case are outweighed by the health and safety that we are obligated and sworn to protect. Councilmember Roscoe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hadn't planned on speaking. In fact, I declined because at the December 11th meeting, we had a very lengthy discussion about this matter and heard a wide array of testimony from concerned business owners and citizens, including a group of young high school students who braved the late hours in order to have an opportunity to address this council. At that time, I even shared with the groups in my own personal experience with tobacco addiction, having a mother who was addicted as of the age of 16 years, and dealing with that affair and addiction for 40 years thereafter. The only thing that stopped her from continuing to smoke was an intensive care visit for about 6 months of her life, which we didn't know if she was going to, survive that. With that said, she has a new love affair with an oxygen tank that she has dragged actually into these chambers for my swearing in. So the dangers of a problem like this are alive and well in my lens. But with that said, I am absolutely echo what the mayor said. I remember at one of his State of the City addresses, one of the first things I heard him say is that people put their life savings on the line in the city to make their dreams happen. And that resonated with me. It's something that I've retold to others because I truly believe in what you all have done to make your own livelihood, but also to contribute to the city. Every time a case lands on my desk where there's a small business owner that has been robbed in the wee hours of the night, those are things that I think about, your families, and the impact it's had on you, your own safety when you're serving a community or when you're trying to operate a business and just want to make that livelihood. So your remarks do not fall on deaf ears. That said, we have to stand for something, and eliminating the danger of a product like this is something really important to stand for. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this discussion in the first place. And, I can hear the arguments about, wanting to protect the rights of smokers as well as balancing the interests of our small business owners. However, there are a wide range and very grave health consequences that are at stake as well. And we can quantify who's affected and who's not, but really, if there were one person who became addicted in the 3 or 4 months before we enforced this ban, isn't that important? Is that a life sentence for somebody for the next 40 years, possibly longer? Or do they deserve to be, disabled by an addiction that unfortunately will change the complexion of their entire life? So with that, I'm not going to continue to reiterate the remarks, but, it is very difficult, but I'm going to remain by my position. I actually feel very strongly about this issue, and if there's no other further discussion or questions, I would actually move this item.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Is there any further discussion? All right, then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, and thank you all for joining us on all sides of the issue. Thank you for contributing to the development of the ordinance or for the discussion around it. All right, with that then, we're going to turn to item 15, which is a presentation and discussion on the proposed landscape development guidelines. Mr. Laffey?
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. The Landscape Development Guidelines is an existing document that was last modified in 1993, and it is incorporated by reference in the city's zoning code. The guidelines apply citywide and provide a basic framework for designing landscaped areas within private development projects. They apply to new commercial developments and residential subdivisions, as well as major expansions or renovations of existing commercial properties. They do not apply to single-family homeowners, but they do apply to subdivisions when they're first being constructed. The existing document has generally worked well over the years. However, an update is needed to implement General Plan 2035 goals and policies relating to sustainability, climate resiliency, and crime prevention through environmental design. Next slide. So there are some major differences between the existing document and what's proposed. The new one is less prescriptive. There are more should clauses and less must. It's a little more flexible. There is low impact development standards and for stormwater management. There's updated irrigation and planting practices, and then what we're going to really get into for tonight is the landscape planter strips. That is something new in this document. So next slide. So this process started in July of 2018, and then we had a draft of the document last summer, and we took it to various city commissions and received their feedback. At the same time that we were taking it to different commissions, the Mayor's Climate Commission was also having a lot of recommendations coming out, and they're still coming out. And some of those are very applicable to the landscape development guidelines. For example, the Mayor's Climate Change Commission is recommending that we target for 30% of trips that be active transportation, so biking and walking, by 2030. And right now, it's about 4.5%, so that's a huge change that we're going to, if the city council goes with those recommendations to accommodate. And another one of the recent recommendations is planting 100,000 trees in the front yard and along streets. So the Planning Commission at the last meeting in November voted to approve Resolution 19-10 PC, which recommends approval of this document, but they also voted to mark Guideline 5.4E, which addresses street trees on local residential roads as reserved. The Planning Commission raised concerns that the proposed Guideline 5.4E does not go far enough in addressing climate change and in having enough street trees. So next slide. But they also realized that there's a balance. So trees are very beneficial. They provide shade, reduction in urban heat island effect, which is great from a climate resiliency standpoint. If you're going to get hotter summers, having more shade is needed. They sequester carbon. They have increased property values when you have a mature tree canopy. They're good for air quality and just general aesthetics. But there's also costs associated with trees. Tree maintenance and pruning. If you have trees near a sidewalk, the roots buckle the sidewalk, and that's a long-term cost. And if you have larger landscape strips, you also reduce private taxable land. So the Planning Commission requested that we come before you tonight and get further policy direction on where the council is on this scale. If you have more trees, it's going to cost more, and vice versa. There's also costs associated with not having trees from a climate standpoint. So I'll quickly go over the options that we presented to the Planning Commission. So this is the current cross-section that we have, and it's turning out to not work out too well because the landscape strip is too narrow. Right now, it's 5.5 feet and half a foot for the curb. And that 5.5 feet just hasn't been wide enough. There's been a lot of maintenance issues with the sidewalk and the tree. It doesn't have enough room for the tree to grow very large. So we came up with some options, and we presented these in front of the various commissions. And the first option, so next slide, is to keep the same right-of-way width, but then just combine the two landscape strips into one and put it all on one side. So you have a very wide landscape strip on the southern or western side of the street to provide maximum shade, and you get a larger tree with doing this, but you're also within the same right-of-way width. So this is what we recommended in Section 5.4E of the guidelines, and the Planning Commission really wanted us to go further than this. They wanted the next option, we go here, which is to expand the right-of-way and have larger planter strips on both sides. And they also had some other ideas in terms of the roadway width and parking, and that's not a part of the landscape development guidelines, but any policy direction we get tonight will help to inform this effort, but we're also going through the climate action plan update and doing the standard specs update for the city, which we can take this into account for that. And then any of the recommendations out of the Mayor's Climate Change Commission will most likely come before you later this year as well. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions, as is Wendy Williams in Development Engineering.
All right, Councilmember Ledesma.
Thank you. And I'll just, as the appointed member to the Mayor's Commission on Commission on Climate Change, this issue did come up at our December meeting of the Climate Commission, and a couple of principles that I brought up there that I'll bring back here, because we can, at some point we'll consider, and this is the first step of it, about how we should be approaching this, because the nobility or the moral imperative here to do something and plant more trees, find more space, you can't discount that, right? And when you have groups from the Sacramento Tree Foundation and others coming up saying, we need more trees, that's terrific. But the equation, all of those questions are coming down to us as the city, and how do we govern and make these kind of policy choices that invariably we have to live with and pay for. And I've been, while supporting this wholeheartedly around the climate action, the commission's findings and directionally where these take us, there is an element of really the implementation part that we are getting to. So how do we actually pay for this, right? And that's kind of your question. We can make all of, I would appreciate going back to the slide, because I was really confused a little bit by, and you explained it a little bit, but I get the need, because we have those little sidewalk and areas in my neighborhood, as David knows, the neighborhood we're in, and the trees can be a pain there, and stuff. So there's lots of goes with it, and I can see the value of opening that up. But again, I think what most people miss in this initiative, what you brought up in your staff report, is most people don't know what their rights are in those areas. Are they theirs? Do they have a right to change the trees? Do they have a right to landscape? And but most importantly, it comes to us as the city, is we've got to take care of those. If they damage streets, they damage sidewalks, they impair stormwater drainage and all those sorts of things. So I think what I've chosen to approach this is to keep with the moral clarity that we need to do something. The part that we need to add into this conversation, and what I've tried to urge the Climate Commission to look at, is we need to find willing partners to help figure this out on the implementation side. So for the nonprofits that are urging us to plant more trees, they've got to come to the table with ways to give us the resources to help manage it, to help choose those things. So I kind of want to get maybe. I know this is around guidelines and providing the space and the use and how these spaces are used, and so I certainly want to keep toward that moral imperative of we've got to provide more space. But the implementation part is going to be even more critical, to the point that I know the Climate Commission now has a technical advisor committee focused on financing, and how do we pay for all this. And not just in the resiliency area that this is covering, or as part of, there's a community resiliency element, but there's also the mobility element and the land use, or the built environment, and lots of grand and moral imperatives to just go do these things, but no one's thinking about how we pay for that. And so my urging to the chair, Ann Stossball, and to the local government commission who's running this, they've created this TAC to help start finding that. So I will bring that, that's one of the areas that I need to bring back, is this is another area where these public-private partnerships or nonprofit partnerships to help manage this are going to be really important. And I think for the purposes of this, I'm after kind of trying to stay as true to the moral imperative of how do we create more space for trees? How do we create more space and workable space to do as little damage as possible to the infrastructure that surrounds it? So I think it's the right thing to do. I do have some questions about where the commission went on this, because it just confused me in the staff report a little bit. And I'm trying to understand where an example of this might be in our city. And I couldn't think of one, so maybe you can help me out with that. But I just want to give the rest of the council kind of that's kind of the background of kind of as I read this, and we should start seeing these kind of influences from the Climate Commission on how it really impacts us, and we will have to battle with how do we implement that. And I think it is okay to say that there's no way to, we don't have a budget to kind of maintain. I know when we looked at the state streets and some of the road rehab we have to do there, the damaged trees that we saw, it does crazy damage that costs us millions, or at least budgets, requires millions of dollars to go fix, right? And so adding, the prospect of adding trees to this, trust me, I shudder at it, but it shouldn't stop me. And so I think we just have to kind of find a way to think about how do we go forward with these kind of imperatives and find the funding for it too. We've done it before, right? And at the end of the recession, when we were losing redevelopment, we came up with the next item that's on the agenda. We found a path to keep moving forward on our ambitious plans and how to fund it. And we just had to get creative. What I'm saying is we've got to do the same here. We've got to find a way to take the moral imperative, be guarded with it, be scrupulous around it, and say, well, do we really need it? Well, what if we did? It kind of goes back to a policy that we need to go find the solution for it too. So I hope that makes sense for you and provide some guidance. And again, I'm kind of climbing towards the way of that moral imperative of trying to make sure we have this covered. So I just want to add that perspective as we start this discussion.
I guess I would add a couple things. One is there are an almost infinite number of tactics that could be undertaken to directionally deal with climate change, and we cannot do them all. Right. So the challenge with the necessary notion of we must do something and we must do everything, but everything actually isn't everything. It is everything that is more feasible than the next level down, right? In the absence of a metric that says, okay, this approach on street trees is would cost this much, and it's going to generate this, magnitude of reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. In the absence of metrics like that, to be able to compare it to some other strategy, okay, maybe rooftop gardens would cost less and reduce more emissions. Without being able to evaluate these one against the other, it's a challenge to say, yeah, it's worth doing. I don't know if it's worth doing or not in this particular instance, and how much of it is an emergent effect of a whole big strategy as opposed to does one tree make a difference if you don't plant 100,000, or is there some tipping point? Is there some collective effect of a group of trees? Those sorts of questions I think do become important as we're going to have to make some decisions about resources, because I think Councilmember Ledesma is exactly right. I mean, this and homelessness are two great examples of massive moral imperatives with huge consequences for not doing everything possible that have mostly been laid at the feet of local governments, which is the one layer of government that has no revenue elasticity. We're the only ones that don't have the ability to either print money or to get another $7 billion out of Facebook capital gain stocks. I mean, we don't have the ability to generate any additional money at any significant level. So we have to make choices, and we have to make choices about sequencing too, and going after the things that are both more feasible and easier and quicker first. Even if we might have other things that we might want to do down the line. So I think for me at least, getting a handle on some of the, some of the cost benefiting of these alternatives versus each other is going to be, it will be important to figuring it out. The second is, I mean, you're right to respond to the Planning Commission that we're not taking up the road geometry issues. They're not part of the landscape guidelines, so we're only really dealing with how much of the developable land versus the not developable land is going to be in the public realm and for what purpose. But as we talk about things, as we explore the possible scenarios in an environment with a greater proportion of automated vehicles, right? And at the tipping point of automated vehicles, you supposedly will need narrower lanes, fewer lanes, and less parking, right? So we're not there yet. Obviously, we're nowhere near the tipping point. We don't have a single automated vehicle on the street. Maybe some Tesla trucks, but we don't have a single automated vehicle on the street. So we're nowhere near the point where our infrastructure changes. But if we have an idealized version of this sort of landscape geometry, for example, that we can't squeeze into this geometry now, we ought to be putting it in this is the worst possible metaphor. It should go in a parking lot that sits for the moments when we're ready to start AV piloting, or if we can figure out a undeveloped zone of the city that we're going to make into an automated vehicle test bed, where it's, only automated vehicles, and if that would allow us then to build the infrastructure that's based on that environment. And in that space, we wouldn't have these conflicts necessarily. We might be able to open up a lot more space for trees and other approaches. And so, rather than just throwing it away, the ideal version, maybe part of the thing, what is the right size for today, but also then putting in our file cabinet or in our Dropbox folder, the more idealized geometry for the moments in which we might be able to either implement or test it, I think is probably our best strategy to try to maximize on it. So I think these are the right questions. Personally, I'm all else being equal, I'd rather do more trees and on both sides of the street and achieve the kinds of things that the planning commission's described. But I think these are going to be important questions that we're going to have to grapple with financing and sequencing and implementation and prioritization as we go forward. Mayor Pro Tem Sandin?
I think I was thinking about some of the issues in a similar way, but my questions were really depending on what question's being answered or what question has more weight. And I came up with a list kind of like what you had shown us of cost, shade, health, watering, aesthetics, maintenance, utility, control, or responsibility. To me, it's figuring out which one matters most or which one we have more control over or it needs to matter most to us. So I think it's similar, although you both have the climate change, I think, frame because of the work with the commission. But for me, it was trying to figure out which one mattered most or which question you're trying to answer, because then you come up, I think, with different answers to the different options. And I came up, I think I threw aside the keeping the model the same and was trying to answer the question with a perhaps different answer, which was to keep the right-of-way, if you can go back 2 slides. The current, the next one. Well, maybe it's either, none of these actually. It's to take a lane of parking away, but to keep it the same size and to build out each side. I think that gets to the potentiality of autonomous vehicles or less cars on the road, more biking or walking, to be able to add larger sidewalks, but to have 2 lanes of traffic and 1 of parking, then you have more landscape possibilities, just as another consideration. So I just was trying to think of, gosh, how could we have the trees, have the expanded landscape that takes away some of these issues with buckling and all the other things that were in the report, well written for us. But that was just another potential alternative to, and I don't know if that had been contemplated.
Not so much for the landscape development guidelines effort,
Right.
but when we go through the standard specs update, that is something we can consider, and how many parking lanes or drive aisles for these local residential streets.
Because I think if we think about the problem statement a little differently, we can actually come up with the solution that might be best for us if we change another piece of the puzzle. And then I think also, if you think about something other than trees for shade, for example, like, I think you mentioned the rooftop. I was thinking, you think in Singapore, like these man-made kind of, that don't take any water, because water is going to continue to be an issue for us, or just, if we open our minds and think differently about what's possible, we may have other solutions to this as well.
If I can, Mr. Mayor. You make a really good point, and I think one of the really difficult parts about the commission and that at least I've grappled with, is kind of the way we've approached things, right? We've approached things in these 3 elements of built environment, mobility, and now community health and resiliency. And the part, and David knows this because he's staffs this too, has been a part of it, you can't connect them all. In a vacuum, you're thinking about the built environment, but you don't think, and I was really kind of harping, well, that and mobility should be working together, right? And because you should be designing neighborhoods, and I think in the mobility one, we try to tackle VMT, right? We tried to tackle that in mobility, but you could play such a bigger part of that in the built environment if you redid neighborhood designs around, making transit more available or putting jump bikes in more suburban neighborhoods, whatever. You can if you thought about it differently. So I think your point's kind of landing there. Like, you could be thinking about this in a totally different paradigm. The need for trees and shade canopies and everything is hugely important to reducing kind of the emission and the effects of warming and everything along these byways. But I think the mayor caught on to it real fast is the parking areas, is where I was going with these, is the parking lanes here and the way streets should be designed in neighborhoods for transit or transit options we don't even know about yet. And I challenged, I think, David about one project that we're around, was around, are we thinking about, a via sort of access point for, if can we make up for vehicle trip miles in that way? Can we start designing them differently so jump bikes are more available, for via rides are more available, and then then you would reduce parking and you would reduce all these other things. But again, because we're talking about, we need more trees, you don't think about it in that way. So I think that's what you're getting at, is if you thought about it differently from a different paradigm, what are we really after in our street design? And I'll tell you that it's probably more touch what you're going to, is that how do we should be looking at it from what's best part of the neighborhood to tackle all those things in some way or another. Climate is just one of the results you get, one of the outcomes.
Councilmember Guerrero.
So when I first moved in the Southport area, I'm a runner, went running out before the trees had grown out. I remember it was very hot. It was burning. I got sunburns on my short runs. And after a period of time, the trees grew. It became much more comfortable to be outdoors. So as we're looking, to make it more bike and pedestrian friendly, I'm thinking, just based on my own experience out, that, trees have made a huge difference. Trees have helped to feel more comfortable outdoors. Trees cool things down. So it's just healthier, and looking at ways to, and I know we're grappling with what we can do to make it affordable. For climate change planning purposes, and drought resistance, it's, plant and things like that. We're trying to find a balance, but continuing without trees, I think, is good. I think it's a hard shift for me. I think we're going to have to incorporate looking at a balance of making sure they're there. Maybe just the one on each side of the street, close to where, where the pedestrians are, and the bikes are. But for the homes, that was the other thing I thought, making sure I had big enough trees so that it cools the home, so you don't have to use air conditioning. And it, provides enough shade so you feel comfortable in your home as well. Some other people use it as screens to have privacy, but I've seen that, the trees have made a difference in providing, it to be more comfortable and not using the air conditioning, so reducing that. So, but that's something a little less of a concern for me as compared to, providing the shade that we need for the streets. So just keeping it short, but trying to work with our climate, change policies on making sure that we don't, have expenditures that exceed our budget, as the mayor pointed out, but seeing what we can do to incorporate it in a way that, doesn't negatively impact us 20 years on down the road. I've seen our oak trees that are being taken down for development or for other purposes. That's, I think, a loss in our community. Some that are needed because, they're not growing well. But, preserving what we can in our community of those big trees that we have today, and then, seeing what else we need to do as we have further development, which will have a lot more going on in the city. Thank you, Seamus, for all the work you've done in this background. This background is extremely helpful, so I appreciate all you've done.
Yeah, so I mean, one thing about since these guidelines are about new plan developments, of which we don't have thousands of different new plan developments on the way. Our city's certainly not built out, but we don't have a lot of additional ones. You think about a new neighborhood, the potential to go from 4.7% trips by active transportation to 30, getting to that number, to me, it seems like it has a higher payoff in climate terms than the number of trees that are associated with this kind of a proposal. So if you did remove a lane of parking, for example, because you were able to achieve, or as part of a strategy to get to that higher level of active transportation as the primary means of mobility, then sort of in some sense, the trees are an ancillary opportunity, but they're not the driving force. You haven't redesigned the neighborhood for the tree. You've redesigned the neighborhood first for for people getting around differently. And so I mentioned automated vehicles as one way, but there are others. So for example, one of the things that we've learned in my own neighborhood is that if with the right set of incentives, garages could be used for cars. It's a crazy idea, but it is possible that garages could be used for cars, so that the general taxpayers are not investing in the infrastructure and then the maintenance of essentially an outdoor garage right in front of your street where you park your own car, which is a subsidy from the broader city to be able to do that, so that you can put stuff into a garage that maybe should be tossed or recycled or put into an appropriate storage facility. So if people use their garage to house their own vehicles and their driveways to accommodate guests, then you could do with dramatically less street parking. Or the causation can flip. If you have dramatically less street parking, as I have none, people realize, gosh, where could I put my car? And you find something. I've had it all along. So since we're talking about new neighborhoods here, not saying to the folks living on 15th Street, now you got to clean out your garages. We're all now going to park in there. We're talking about new places for a new generation of folks that are buying homes and that understand the climate imperative. And you said to be a climate-friendly homeowner means using active transportation, and if you have an electric vehicle or another vehicle, it goes in the garage. That you don't expect that there's going to be asphalt out front for 3 cars plus 2 in your garage and 2 more in the driveway. So these pieces do come together, but there are also real opportunities right now in order to try to leverage them forward. So. All right. Did you get sufficient policy direction? From us? Did we get to all the questions that you posed? Mr. Ledesma?
Well, I wanted to go back because I know this issue of the expanded landscape on attachments 4, 5 are sort of, you're kind of looking for really specific direction from that. And I don't know if I have any, because the alternative A just confused me in terms of was the commission, it was the planning commission, right? Was there feedback on this that make more space for the right-of-way? I'm just trying to understand what they were, to put trees on one side and then the other side just more planting strip. I'm trying to understand what they were trying to achieve.
They had a similar discussion that you had where they wanted to go, they wanted to look at more than just the tree. They wanted to look at the parking and the drive aisle width. They did want more trees. They didn't want to have them on just one side of the street. They wanted both in a larger landscape strip. So one of the reasons why the staff recommended this one is we felt it was an optimal balance between getting a larger canopy tree and more room for it, but also not incurring the extra cost with having a landscape strip on both sides for long-term maintenance.
And you're talking about alternative A?
Yeah, that's the one that has the tree on one side?
Yeah. So, you have the 5-foot sidewalk and then the 9.5-foot sidewalk tree, which would be just an open
It would be a landscape strip with
Like-
a
like-
tree.
Okay.
Yeah.
And on the other side was just sidewalk, and then a planting strip that would have, no trees would be allowed.
So in alternative A, there is no landscape strip on the opposite side. We had an alternative B, which was,
Gotcha.
it's in your report, but it's like a 2-foot area for some shrubs. That did not seem to be a very popular option with the commissions. But yeah, alternative A has only a landscape strip on one side.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Other feedback? I don't love the only one side of the street piece, but if it were, but I don't really love any of them, in part because of these, the rest of the street geometry stuff that we've been talking about. They feel like, okay, if I had to live with this thing, with this geometry, then this option is, fine, but it feels very much like I'm planning in the rearview mirror for the last century. So I don't know. I mean, given that these kinds of projects take a long time, and there's a lot of other approvals involved, and personally, I'd be interested in whether or not it might be feasible to have a couple of alternatives, because we don't really know actually what the best impacts on climate and mobility and everything else are, but a couple of options that if a developer came and said, I want to build the city's first carbon zero neighborhood, and therefore I'm going to propose, in a different agenda item, I'm going to propose removing the parking and proposing, this format of street trees. I'd say we should be giving them the chance to test that out. And not, it's not spend 3 years studying whether or not that works or not. It's worth a try compared to what it is that we're doing now. If a developer has a different approach, I'd be open to it. So I'm not saying that, that these three should be the, three options, but I would encourage you to think about whether or not we could create more, in some sense, more outcomes-based alternatives, where we say, our intention is, an appropriate active transportation environment. So, and however you define that in terms of sidewalks and that sort of thing, our intention is achieving this level of climate benefit. And it may be by 2 trees of this size, or 1 tree of this size, or the robotic tree that was, you're the one who mentioned that, some alternative tree, or I know I've been, some other cities have been installing trees that are not trees, but they're made out of planter boxes or something that, that to provide enough flexibility where it is, here's the basic, here's the default one. But if you have a proposal that achieves these, some of these core outcomes that are really important to us, around both active transportation and around climate, it's just 2 examples, that we have a fast track that doesn't require a general plan amendment and 16 other things and a bunch of fees and a task force in 3 years in order to do.
I think that's a really good suggestion.
All right, you got enough?
That's very helpful, yeah.
Thanks. Thank you. Stop now. All right, thanks so much. That brings us then to item 16, which is consideration of Resolution 20-4, approving the Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District EIFD budget policies. Jacobson?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight, staff is recommending approval of Resolution 20-4, establishing policies for the Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District investments. I'd like to start with a bit of background. In 2011, the state legislature dissolved redevelopment, and all tax increment revenues went into a trust fund that was controlled by the county. Payments for those remaining redevelopment obligations as determined by the state, are now paid from this fund. In 2012, city voters passed Measure G initiative to continue community revitalization and economic development efforts within the old redevelopment area, and council during the same 2012 year passed Community Investment Action Plan to guide those investments. Around 2014, the city formed IFD-1 for specific bridge district facilities. Those boundaries are in green on the map. And in June 2017, the city formed the Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District 1, which is in the gray area. So I'm simply putting up these graphics by way of example to illustrate that the districts, the old redevelopment district and the EIFD and IFD districts are roughly the same boundaries. So funding in the Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District is governed by both the City Council and the Public Finance Authority. So staff plans to take these policies to the Public Finance Authority following council action and direction, and staff would anticipate presenting any EIFD budget recommendations to the Public Financing Authority prior to council consideration or simultaneously with council consideration. The PFA, the Public Financing Authority, however, is mostly focused on debt financing and issuance of debt and making sure that once debt is issued, that those obligations are satisfied first. Now that the state legislature passed AB 116, the city is able to issue debt from the EIFD revenues without a vote or initiative or a vote within the district to allow for that. That's why Resolution 24 also includes direction to the Finance Department to evaluate the capacity, the timing, and the potential bond proceeds that might be raised from the EIFD. This is just a basic flow chart to show the flow of former redevelopment area property tax growth, that the county is responsible to pay all of the remaining obligations of the redevelopment agency. And as you can see by the projections and the chart that was in the staff report, the EIFD is projected to grow over time, while Measure G will not experience growth until the redevelopment bond debt is fully satisfied. Next. So these are the eligible facilities that were provided in the EIFD law. Facility investments must have a 15-year lifespan to them. They must be located in the district, and if located outside of the district, we would need to document a direct connection or impact to the district. During EIFD formation, a jurisdiction can identify very specific facilities, which is what the city did in the Bridge District with IFD 1. It identified very detailed facilities that the IFD 1 was intended to finance based on the collective Bridge District documentation. However, the EIFD covers a large geographic area in the city, and the eligible uses were included in the EIFD 1 formation. So given that, as the council did with Measure G and the Community Investment Action Plan criteria, staff is recommending that council establish policies and guidance by Resolution 20-4 to guide staff in terms of evaluating and preparing budget requests using the EIFD funds. So to date, staff has not requested any EIFD appropriation pending this council guidance. Resolution 20-4 guidance includes a priority for infrastructure. As was outlined in the report, our city, since incorporation, has inherited a lot of infrastructure that is aging, that has insufficient capacity, and that needs replacement. And we also have a lot of park needs and areas of our city that are underserved in terms of parks. Additionally, we have areas of the cities that have been identified and targeted for deindustrialization. So those areas, as they transition to commercial or residential uses, will also require significant investment. So that is why it was staff is recommending that infrastructure be a priority of the EIFD. It would be a priority, but the criteria that's being established with this resolution would be similar to Measure G in that EIFD investments into infrastructure and parks should have a return on the investment. They should leverage private investment. They should, or augment other funding sources. So there should be some kind of return on to the city for the EIFD investment. So we have been working with the Parks and Recreation Department and also the Public Works Departments as they have updated master plans to identify those projects that would meet that kind of EIFD return on investment criteria. Also, there's a prioritization in the resolution being established for removing barriers to sustainable development as a priority. So this could include investments like structured parking that would support and advance the densities that are required to achieve transit-oriented development patterns. It could also be trees or other, pedestrian bicycle amenities that actually reduce, vehicle miles drive to create that further advance our city's ability to achieve its broader climate action plan goals. So there's an additional criteria and description in the resolution that has been drafted to potentially create more success for the city in terms of tapping the potential of our infill areas. And this graphic represents just a quick analysis where had my staff pull all of the building permits that have been issued in the city between 2012 and 2019. And just to do this quick, rough graphic, and you can see that the areas with reduced fees are in green, and you can see the difference in the amount of investment in those areas that have incentivized fee packages or reduced fees versus the red. So our prior city investments in infrastructure and in amenities, and particularly in our urban infill districts, have created huge market demand. And as the economic development director, I can tell you weekly I'm getting phone calls from developers with proven track records, both from this region and from out of state, that are so excited about the potential of these areas and are trying to put property under option. At the same time, I know from talking to them that they're struggling because the cost of housing construction and the rents and prices for housing in our area still, it remains a challenge, especially for the type of denser housing project that we're looking for in our in urban infill areas. So at the same time, because our fees are very high, because of these infrastructure needs that our city has always had, and we've always been very reliant on our impact fees because of the infrastructure requirements. So the city's property tax share, however, under the EIFD is also very high compared to the share that other jurisdictions receive. The EIFD would receive 50.4%. So this the criteria that have been drafted and that are before you for consideration today really intended to not implement a program, but simply to provide an envelope of eligibility for staff to do further evaluation and analysis in this area, and to come back to council in the future with future workshops and analysis about how we can create a strategy for the EIFD that also supports new housing investment in our city. So also, I wanted to recognize in this presentation and in drafting this resolution, there are eligible uses provided for in our formation document, and that will require further analysis in council workshops. These are new uses for our city. For example, adaptive reuse of private industrial facilities. We know that in our city we do have a lot of obsolete industrial facilities. And we also have a lot of areas that are designated for transition and deindustrialization. These assets could be valuable. They could play a very important role in a long-term economic development strategy for targeted industries or uses. It also could be, this type of investment could be considered in many ways in terms of advancing, change of use in these areas or beautifying these areas. So I just wanted to recognize in this presentation tonight that even though it's part of the eligible projects and investments, staff recognizes there would be a lot more work that would need to be done in this area. So further analysis, we're thinking, I also wanted to add that I think that if we were going to look at these kinds of investments in industrial facilities, that it's most likely that staff would come back and recommend that take place in very targeted, identified, geographic areas, if not for attracting even targeted uses in those areas. But, for example, Pioneer Bluff or the area west of Washington District that's intended to transition might be an area where the council would want to consider something like that. And that concludes my presentation.
Any other questions for Katie? Yes. Mr. Ledesma?
So, Katie, thank you very much. I think this is great by starting the framework for a discussion around how we can utilize the EIFD funds to make the most impact. And I particularly was paying attention to the one area around policy 2, which is removing barriers, and your identification that fees can be an inhibitor to kind of, or not to be so reliant on impact fees, so that we could actually get stuff out of the ground. So I'm thinking of housing. We do have a section on affordable housing, but housing in general would be, because there is, a lack of, we need more housing, obviously, of all types, and certainly affordable housing. But I'm not sure how to phrase the question, so I'm just going to if we were to do that, is it by a project? I mean, is it by a project basis? How would that be implemented?
We've given it some thought, and I've been working with the finance director, and we have I plan to do a very focused workshop on the topic. We have some ideas and alternatives. I think that what we would recommend, it would have to be, we don't want to trigger a prevailing wage requirement on a project individually, so we'd have to set within these areas on a systematic basis, if projects meet certain density goals, certain, VMT reduction goals, or we would have to set out criteria that if a project met that, then they might be eligible for these reductions. And then what we're thinking of recommending, again, we're still doing analysis, and we have a consultant doing some work for us, and I need to do more coordination with the finance department. But essentially then, for example, the EIFD would generate tax increment that could come and backfill that impact fee fund so that it was made whole.
Right. Okay, so what came to mind in reading through that, and I don't think it's a bad idea or directionally right? And it reminds me of, I was reminded of the state's bonds 10 years ago? Prop 1C, right? We benefited from that and got a $20 million grant for all the infrastructure to where all this is happening now. But I think they were smart in putting in some hooks around that housing had to be built. And so from a directional standpoint, I'm just making it very clear, if there's projects that are going to, and ones we want, right? We want housing, we want affordable housing. If we're going to provide any of these dollars to go towards projects that were proposed projects, or even land that were built, they got to get built. And so I don't know how we can build that into a policy statement here, that how would is that feasible? So if we start saying we're going to have projects to build a housing project in the Washington neighborhood, and they're getting the benefit of public dollars and all the money we put into the Washington neighborhood, plan, and as well as now the dollars we put in for Part 1C that led to the Tower Bridge Gateway, everything else. And now they're getting more public investment into this. They got to get built, or they don't get the money, or we have to go claw it back. I don't know what that mechanism is, but we're sitting on too much of that right now, where we're not seeing those properties built. And I'm just not going to, we did this 8 years ago, whenever it was. We started this way because we wanted to see the growth, and we did a phenomenal job, and we're ready again. But we've got to have partners that actually follow through on it, or they're not going to get the benefit of it. That was just an immediate thing that came to mind on this.
Staff would intend that benefit would only be conferred upon pulling of a building permit.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be a general fee reduction across a district. It would be based on pulling a building permit, and the fees are now due.
But I think even when we think about, and I don't know how you do it, but when you think about the infrastructure, where we need it, and how, again, we leveraged the heck out of the state and others to get to where we are, and we'll probably do it again in the Washington neighborhood, or in Broderick, or in Bright, wherever we are going to go next. I am just at the fool me once, fool me twice stage, right? We're going to put money towards investments so that, and I don't know how you can do that if we're, there was no specific project in mind when we did the Bridge District. It was just, we made basically pad-ready development lots, and only one developer is out there building right now. And Cirque du Soleil doesn't count right now. But they're just sitting on that land after all our investment. And so if we go for another round of public investment through the IFD program for infrastructure to get it ready, I don't know what we can do or how we can do it to make sure that whoever's on there that we have, that they're on the hook for somehow for performance of building. So I just wanted to make that statement, because we worked really hard and put a lot of people put a lot of work into, you included, and staff, and we got legislators to move this law for us. We did a lot of things to make this happen, and was on the notion that we were going to fulfill kind of as a community investment strategy to keep growing and keep bringing infrastructure and housing. So again, I don't want to lose that thought on this.
Yeah, I'm just going to pick up and then transition a bit, because I think I agree 1,000%. We know a lot about economic development in this city, and we have a lot of talented staff and partners and what have you. So we can afford a very sophisticated strategy in this space, and we've also had enough. We had a lot of successes, and we've also had a lot of lessons along the way. And the point of a budget policy in this case, especially because it's, a lot of these choices ultimately are going to get made through the public financing authorities, for the council to express policy. And so I think this is an excellent kind of first stab at this, because it describes the sorts of priorities that we might have, but it does so largely without prioritizing, right? And it doesn't, and I think even your last slide indicated pretty much everything that's eligible is in here somehow. And so it doesn't really provide a framework to say this and not that. Or you've come in the door and you want a bunch of fee credits, and you're going to open up a new building, and it will increase property taxes a little bit. It's 400,000 square feet, and there'll be 12 jobs at it because everything else will be done by robots. To me, that's a no. That's a hard no, hard pass. No, thank you. Good luck to you, build that, but that is not worthy of limited EIFD resources when we have such dramatic imperatives around housing affordability, or climate, or homelessness, or the riverfront, or restaurants, or whatever. We have things that are way higher on the priority list, and that ought to be reflected in the decisions that we're making. And we've had plenty of these come before us in the past, or not come before us, where our managers or others have been out trying to get every project to happen. And not every project should happen, but certainly not every project deserves, a small number of projects deserve a direct investment from the IFD, and most of the IFD investment should be in systemic infrastructure. that isn't about subsidizing a particular project. And getting to this question around the partner really does make it's a huge difference between, investing in folks that are building and those that are not, and they are categorically different. And you're right, if it weren't for that one developer, our signature development area in the Bridge District wouldn't be moving at all. And so being able to have, so I'd like to see this policy be tighter in being clear, like what is not going to get, do not knock on the door for this. And you can knock on the door for these, but, it just depends. It's like the sewer credit thing. If there's nothing else in line right then maybe. But you're in the second half of the line. So so that the council, through this policy, is able to express an actual policy prioritization for how those resources can happen. And I don't see that yet here. I hear it in your description of it. So I know you're thinking about a lot of these issues, but I think it does need to be reflected fairly clearly in here. And I would draw some of those pieces out. I think, the climate discussion we had earlier is one of those that should be a priority. And I agree on housing as a whole, but I think housing affordability is really, really, really critical. And so, if there are two projects or two areas, districts that have things in queue, that the area that is building, a diversity of housing that is affordable across a range of incomes, to me is a higher priority than a slightly denser project that is all luxury condos. And I'm not saying every nuance ought to be reflected in the policy, but we ought to be calling out as many of these dimensions as possible at the policy level, so that we can then let the machine of economic development do its appropriate job as we go forward. I completely agree on the performance standards that the Councilmember Ledesma has described. And I think, one example of this other issue in 2E is the catalyst projects, which many projects call themselves that, and most of them aren't, or they're catalysts in very small ways. And so, describing what that means, really, operationalizing that, really, it's not just a big project, it's not just the first project in a district, but it should mean something more than that in terms of this funding, I think would also be helpful, at least from our perspective, in narrowing the field of these investments that we are making. Because I still think in general we should be investing in infrastructure directly to the maximum extent possible and not in fee reductions. Because even that chart, yes, it is, the Bridge District is one of those examples, but we happened upon a particular developer for whom those investments were a smart investment for the city. Southport Business Park, if we had never developed that area, it wouldn't have been the end of the city. It's been a valuable economic, driver for the city, but it's not the core of our economy, and it's certainly not the core of, the amenities of the people write home to grandma, I love my city, and here's why. That's not the one. So, with fee reductions, we could do all kinds of things, but targeting those in a more specific way to the extent that we have to do them at all. Because more and more and more developers and our state government partners have to recognize this is the cost. This is the cost that we face when we have to extend a sewer line or build a road or do any of the other infrastructure. And once we start to do what Sacramento and others do, which is to say, yeah, we pretty much assume everybody's going to get some kind of subsidy for their project or their fees, then all it does is everybody that walks in the door with a proposal for a subsidy or a fee reduction. And then we're just saying no to folks who have an expectation that they're going to get something. And I think if Raleigh Field came in today, or Sutter Health Park came in today, and that they would probably walk out of here with $12 million in fee credits and other subsidies. They walked out of here with not even $200,000 when we did the deal, because we didn't have a program. We didn't have a pot of money to build. They didn't need it, but they would have said all these things. Oh, we won't come unless you give it. We just won't do it. They did say that. But the extent to which we create programs that are directly to subsidize individual projects, the more we are inviting folks. We make people feel stupid if they don't ask us and pretend and negotiate us into giving them dollars. So the project by project one catalyst or not, I just want to be very careful about, because it gets very seductive for all the parties involved. But in general, we're better off with projects like removing the rail from the river, or the other kinds of systemic projects that make everybody's projects possible, rather than us picking the favorites along the way. Councilmember Guerrero.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to add that, through my period of time here and even through the legislative process with the EIFD this last year, my observation has been that West Sacramento is the envy of all the other cities in California, and that we are well-established, advanced, and, we have to make sure Aaron doesn't spend too much time away from the city providing presentations up and down the state, trying to teach other cities how to do this. So, given that, this is done immediately, and now we have a great opportunity, and we have just a really good, strong foundation moving forward and expending, this valuable resource and looking at what we can do to make sure, when I saw infrastructure, I thought, this is great, because I know this is extremely important if we continue to develop and make improvements in the city. So in public safety is one of the areas that's been a priority of mine, making sure that, when we develop, and whether it be a trail or whether it be, affordable housing, that we have the sufficient resources for, through public safety, and also, roads and, other things and trails that, allow people to, have greater mobility. So just making sure that we are balancing all of our needs. And that's when I saw that you have the city facilities, childcare facilities, for example. I hear a lot from residents who are looking for more childcare facilities. And so we're building such a beautiful community in our parks and things like that, dog parks, so that we have recreational activities and also the resources for our residents so that they can work and play here in our city. And the affordable housing is a huge issue going on, in California, making sure that we have sufficient affordable housing, and we can be definitely a game changer here. Being close to a very busy, riverfront, there's going to be a lot of development, we're going to be attracting a lot of people, so we're going to need the workforce that can work close to these great amenities that we're building, so making sure that it's affordable, because the jobs will be there. And just getting the transit in and out, so looking at what we can do to improve on that. And so we have some great opportunities, and strategically and thinking it smart down the road, making sure we plan well. And I think, Katie, you just did a great job in highlighting everything that needs to get done here. I really appreciate it, and, just excited about what we have to look forward to in the future through AFD and other opportunities.
Thank you.
Yeah, one point of emphasis on this is just as you indicated, the EFD captures 50% of the property tax revenue for within its boundaries, which is a good thing, to the extent that the investments that we're making with it are actually generating the increase. Right, so as an example, if we use EFD funds for things that don't improve the value of that parcel and the area around it. So say we use the EFD money to build a new private movie theater at the basement of City Hall. So it's a great amenity, but nobody knows about it. Doesn't change the value of City Hall, but the property value still goes up because other things are happening in the world. Property values are rising, and the rest of the area is improving. We still capture the money, but we're not capturing any more money because of that theater that we built underground. So, and the cost of that is money that would have otherwise gone in the general fund that could pay for police and fire and parks and other things. And so it's not as though that 50% is just free money. It's only free money if we use the investments to make the property tax revenue go up even more than it would without it. And because the EFD wins no matter what, even if property tax totals go up, just because development, the world's property values are increasing, the EIFD benefits. That's not what this is about, because we're better off if that money just comes into the general fund in that case. Yeah. This funding is about how to drive improvements in those revenues so that we can continue to, a virtuous cycle of making investments and improvements that are going to raise that. Mr. EIFD?
I just want to chime in on, in particular, in two ways, because Katie and I have had a lot of discussion about this concept of trying to get at some of the issues with fees, and it really is pinpointed towards higher density housing development. I think the best case in point we have is in the Washington district. This isn't meant to be a citywide benefit. Some of the examples that were cited, I think we completely understand this wouldn't be for just an incentive that you see in some other cities where they're just throwing money at trying to attract a company, for example. This is about an area like Washington where if you compare it to the Bridge District, even in our own city, let alone comparing it to Midtown, the costs of development are the same, the rents are similar, the cost of land is similar. Yet in the Bridge District, because of Prop 1C, because of redevelopment, because of the fee structure that we've created there, it's not the same level of competitiveness in the Washington District. And we've seen evidence over and over of why sites that are otherwise listed for sale are great development sites. They tend to linger, and there's lots of reasons for that, but we have spent a lot of time analyzing that and come up with the strategy around, the fees are part of the issue. And so using the EIFDE for some of the fee programs that we've been looking at, the ones that are specifically about public facilities and are specifically eligible under the EIFDE code, it's something we would like to, make an attempt to try to address. It would be targeted, it would be based on performance. So I just want to chime in that it's something that I think in Washington in particular, we would like to have the option to, to offer it. I think some of the comments that were made are right on point. That wouldn't be a one-size-fits-all, come one, come all kind of thing. There would be performance metrics. There would be some kind of criteria for, who would be eligible. And the main test for that would be density. Affordability could be as well. But it is an area where we think using this tool in that way in a place like Washington and also in the Civic Center West Capitol area would be effective. So just some perspective there.
That makes a lot of sense, and appreciate that. I do think, though, that a modest, like a first mover approach, as opposed to, we recognize there's a problem in Washington, period, so, whoever y'all come, if you meet, 7 units per acre, anybody who does that at any time will get this. I'd like to stay away from those sorts of approaches. Once, we're trying to get to a point where a banker or an investor can be persuaded to provide the financing for that project.
Yeah.
And that happens by a lot of things. Part of it is the cost number, but a bigger part of it is it marketable? Is this project going to work? And so we need to get a couple of them across the line. Ideally, being able to distinguish between projects and their developers and teams that are creating a momentum in a district like that, as opposed to in and out, or worse yet, in entitle and out, without developing, but really paying attention to, okay, is this, we don't need a program necessarily, I mean, that's over the counter, as much as we need the ability for our team to be able to make very, very tactical strategic investments, at least at the beginning, when you're trying to flip the financing bias that's holding some of these projects back by proving the market. Other comments?
I think it's a really great start, Katie, and hopefully we give you good direction. So thank you very much.
So it's here tonight, and it's going to the PFA at some point, or we'll come back here again, or?
I'll go next to the PFA.
Now, we did have in the recommended action, though, to adopt a resolution to approve the policy, so want to maybe check in on that, because I'm not sure. I heard that you're ready for that, but.
I think you're well on the way. I don't think it's ready for adoption. But.
Okay. Maybe we would suggest if we run it through the PFA first, and then take some of the input, incorporate it there, and then come back. I don't know what Katie has any input on that.
Absolutely, we can attempt, probably I would recommend that we try to incorporate the tightening that the council has expressed a desire for, then go to the PFA, and then come back to you with that.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Has this been run by any other outside parties, third parties on kind of?
It has not been run by any private sector developer parties at all, but I mean, right now, our competitive markets that we are not.
Yeah, I've had a couple of conversations with a couple that have looked, one that's specific I talked to you about in the Washington neighborhood, it wants to do something but can't make it work. And
Exactly.
It had nothing but high things, high remarks for you and everybody else in the city, but
There's a great little market. It's a micro unit project. It's very, very dense. It's been proposed it's been designed to be affordable by nature, by its design. And it's kind of solved the other challenges, but it is held up by needing to have some relief on this front. So, I mean, of course, you always have the instrument of a development agreement. That's a really heavy instrument to use, for something where it's just solving a problem like this. Yeah, definitely will see what I can do. I mean, I think I say in my report that I would have loved to go and do a full-blown targeted investment strategy, but that would take a lot of time. And so I just wanted to get an initial envelope created, and then my expectation is we would keep coming back to you, and you would expect that there would be more definition and more workshops and more narrowing and targeting. But I will take your comments and modify it, and then go into the Public Financing Authority and then return.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, that brings us to item 17, which is consideration of the year-end summary report for the West Sacramento Home Run.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for this opportunity to deliver a summary of achievements from the West Sacramento Home Run from the 2019 year. My name is Justine Jimenez, and I'm the business manager for the West Sacramento Home Run. For those in the audience who may not be familiar with the Home Run, we do have 3 bases. We start serving children who are in preschool age and all the way up until college age. So I'll be giving an overview of some of the accomplishments of across the bases, sort of the entire program, as well as an update on some of the achievements from each of the bases, and talking about the challenges of the year, and moving through that way. So we'll go ahead to the next slide. One of the most exciting things is that our program is fully staffed. We did have our program manager, Jeff Miller, who's here with me tonight as well, join us in January of last year. So he and I started about the same time working. My position was transitioned at the end of December of 2018. And then we had Mandy Noriko Irvin, who joined us in May of 2019. And we also had our half-time data manager who splits his time between us and the Smart Cities Initiative, and he was able to join the team in December of 2019. So we also were able to have a comprehensive data sharing agreement signed by both, approved by both the City Council and our Washington Unified School Board, and that happened in June of 2019. We were featured in many different, as our mayor is well aware, he was one of the people speaking on behalf of us most of the time. But we were actually featured in various magazine articles and across different platforms at various, we went to the, on KVIE and the California Community Colleges Association Conference, Governing Magazine, University of Notre Dame Future of Work Conference, the Genius Village Retreat. There are a variety of different places where platforms where we were able to present on the program. And again, that was because of the interest in our program as a national model, as a cradle-to-career initiative. Some of the other things that were exciting, we had 39 new marketing collateral pieces. So in other words, we've been working on the marketing piece for quite some time, but this year we were really, as we took it into implementation and out of sort of planning for all the programs and really implementing all of them, we were able to use, instead of going through having stock images, we were able to use actual participants who were in our programs and use those to create new materials both to outreach to families as well as to continue to just give general information about our program to funders, to whoever might be interested. But we are really proud of the fact that it's all of our flyers, brochures, and rack cards they now have participants that actually participated in our West Sacramento home run rather than just, stock images. So we have a newsletter now, which is put out quarterly. There are currently 407 people who are receiving that. We want to keep expanding that all the time. Every outreach that we do, we get more people signing up to say that they'd like to receive that newsletter. And we had very high positive sentiment on social media as well. From the Zen City report, it said that there was only one negative comment throughout 2019, and 80% of discourse was driven by official sources, which is a really good thing. So we can go to the next slide. We had 18 preschools that were certified as high quality last year. That doesn't sound, it was up from 13 the previous year. And what that means is that each of those preschools has a rigorous assessments done by certified, people who are certified by the state of California to be able to perform these assessments. They participate in professional development, they participate, they have coaching, they have a quality improvement plan, which then gets, every time there's a visit from their coach, they go into how to continuously improve. So that was really exciting to be able to bring up the number that much, and we actually have 2 currently in the process of becoming certified. So we should have 20, we're hoping, by the end of this fiscal year. 485 children completed a high-quality preschool. That's the highest number we've ever had, because we've had larger numbers of actual preschoolers, but that's 3- and 4-year-olds. These were children who completed a high-quality preschool and went on into kindergarten.
In 1 year?
In 1 year, we had 485 with those 18 preschools. It's significantly upped the number of how many children are completing. So we had 376 children who, some of them went to TK, just to be clear. They didn't all go to kindergarten, some of them went to TK. 376 children had college savings accounts opened with at least $50 in seed funding from the city. And we did receive that Every Kid Counts grant from the California Student Aid Commission. That was $148,576 for us over 2 years, and that's mostly to expand and give bonuses and incentives to students. So that was exciting to receive that, and we were one of just, I believe, 9 communities across California that received that grant. We also were able to participate through the funding that we received from First 5 California. We were able to do mini grants for quality improvement to really give sites the opportunity to say, if I could have up to $4,000, they could make a really significant improvement. Some of those things included, putting a bike path in cement in the yard where children could be able to use that, developing large motor skills and keeping the play yard safe, being able to install bookcases and things that assist, in that environment, in the quality environment. So 22 different sites were able to apply for that quality improvement grant and receive that. And we also have been invited to speak at the February 2020 summit for First 5 California to talk about connecting early learning initiatives to cradle to career and how that can work in communities. Additionally, for the first base, we participated in a countywide evaluation of our early learning programs. If you go to the next slide, there's just a couple of, I actually included this slide because we were one of, as most of you are well aware on the council, we were one of 8 counties who initially participated in the First 5 funding to provide universal preschool, high-quality, connect all families with high-quality preschool in their communities. And so through that, we've continued to be the stewards of that funding. And over the last 5 years, we've actually been doing it as a county-wide initiative. So we do our work for the early learning piece of the home run. We do it not just here in West Sacramento, but across the county. And that evaluation has really revealed that the funding has been extremely helpful to early learning professionals, to people who are providing, these are family childcare owners and operators, these are teachers who are participating in a center, these are Head Start, state preschool, and private pay centers where children are served in preschool and care facilities across our county. And there was, at some point, we're going to be actually probably presenting this to several different, the YCOE board, for instance, and across the county to present a little bit more about that information, but I did want to just include that in our one of our successes for the program. I should have brought my water up here, excuse me. This actually was, this is specifically regarding the impact funds that we had, so we can go to the next slide. For our second base, this was our first year bringing the second base operations in-house. With the additional staffing, we were able to do that. It really enabled us to take a look at all the systems that were being utilized. We kind of hit the ground running. Again, it was myself and Jeff in the beginning of the year, and we were like, okay, we got to start doing this intern program. Let's figure it out. We got, these digital badges. Thank you, Jeff. We were extremely pleased to be able to deliver that intern program. We had about the same number of interns as we had last year, but for the fact that we had pretty much all new staff, because it wasn't just Jeff and I, but also at the school district, there were new staff that were working in the program. And we still had 50 internships for students to select from. 32 interns were hired and placed in those internships, and 28 completed the whole internship. We're also continuously working on the badging piece, the digital badges, and there are currently 9 new badges in development and 46 XPs. Those are the pieces, the experiences that make up those digital badges. Those are actually being worked on. Jeff is mainly working on those, and he's working with our college and career pathways teachers at Washington Unified. So those are being co-developed. And we also, obviously, the collaboration with the school district and the Chamber of Commerce were key in order to be able to deliver that internship program. We also were able to do some really great follow-up after the internship programs and get some talk to both the people who hosted interns and the interns themselves and see how valuable they were. And we had really, really high positive rankings just in terms of I have one quote here, which is just one of our interns, but most of the interns had just a lot of good things to say about how, for many of them, this was either their first work experience or their first sort of formal work experience. They'd maybe worked on the weekends at Panda Express or something like that, and this was the first time that they had a job where they had to come dressed in a certain way and show up every day on the same time. So it was a really, really successful summer, and we're looking forward to an even larger implementation this year with more interns and a lot more applicants as well. So we can go to the third base. Our third base program accomplishment, those continuously, we've grown the number some, but we had 89 students who accessed fee-free tuition at Sacramento City College campuses this year. We aligned it with the Los Rios Promise program at the request of our partners at the West Sacramento Center for Sacramento Community Colleges, because it makes it much easier to implement on their end, and it also helps us, again, make the costs, reduce the cost to us, and also make it more efficient and more accessible to more students. We also did our 5th annual Kinders Go to College this year. That's always a really fun event. We had Mayor Pro Tem at the time, Orozco, was able to speak at that along with our Superintendent Linda Luna. There were many, many people who spoke there. And this is always a really fun event for the students that participate, which is not just our kindergarten students, but also our 8th grade mentors and several students from the CTE pathways that come from Washington Unified. And the 5th annual was just an exciting event, so that was really nice. We were also invited to join the Promise Coalition, which is the California, people across California who are looking together at what's coming from the state in terms of looking at a statewide promise, college promise. And this is hopeful, we're hopeful that this will give us an ability to sort of be there as policy is shaped and ideas are floated for how that will look. And finally, for the third base program, we have the final pieces of the college scholarship program, which we're planning to bring before council. We have it pretty much all finished, and we want to bring it to council for approval, hopefully in February of 2020. And then if approved at that time, or if we come back with it, still the plan is to make it available to high school graduates this spring. So we can go to the final. The year was not without its challenges. We definitely had some setbacks, things that took longer than expected. The data sharing agreement was definitely one of them. We really anticipated having that finished before the school year ended in spring of 2019, and that was difficult because it didn't actually get signed by the Washington Unified School Board until June of 2019 when school was already out. So we weren't able to access some of the data that we had hoped before the school year ended. The Washington Unified also had, as you all know, some significant cuts, and what that meant to us, besides just it affecting our community, was that the first and second bases had significant cuts in administration, and so the people that we worked with directly, the staff that we worked with directly for those two programs were either on their way out or being cut, and so that was difficult as we had to work with kind of bringing new staff up to speed and figuring out who was going to be taking on those pieces in their absence. Our data manager position did take a lot longer than expected as well. We were hoping to have that person on board before the summer, but he was hired in December of 2019, and we're very excited. We've actually already met with him a couple of times and have been able to meet with the director of IT for Washington Unified as of Monday of this week. So he's already looking at systems and trying to begin the work on that. And again, just because we did not have that data sharing agreement in place, we were unable to make the data matches. As you know, the students who participate and complete a high-quality preschool program and then enroll in a Washington Unified kindergarten are the ones who are eligible for the college savings account. Until we had that data sharing agreement in place, we weren't able to actually match the data. So that did not happen until later fall of 2019, and that was for the kindergartners from the 17, 18 graduates, the preschool graduates, and the 18, 19 both. So that's where we were able to finally match those. And that did happen, and so that was successful, but it was just very delayed in terms of what our time frame had originally been. And then I think also just that we were, three full-time staff on this program were all new. And we were all, sometimes we said, why do we do it this way? And then we'd say, Amanda, why do we do it this way? And she'd say, I don't remember. Aaron, why do we do it this way? I don't know. Can somebody tell us? Can we call Ian? But it also really allowed us for, especially that teamwork to have innovative ideas and kind of think outside the box and maybe come up with solutions that we wouldn't have otherwise. So, next slide, thanks. In terms of the data systems, we're very excited again to be working with our new data manager in our IT department. we're looking at all these different databases. We have two databases in the West Sacramento Home Run. The Washington Unified School District has two different databases, and those two don't talk to each other in both, and then definitely all four don't talk to each other. And then we also have Los Rios District has another database. So there's these different, that we're looking at how do we really track children across time? How do we use a unique identifier? Is it the CalPADS ID that's issued by the state for students, but well, they don't get that until they go into kindergarten. So we're looking at that, and that's one of the solutions that we're coming up with our data manager. And really the goal is to have this as a constant feedback loop, to be able to say, these students are, this is what we're seeing in terms of performance, this is what we're seeing in terms of where we can make improvements in the program. And I think the final slide. So we really do feel with the 1 year under our belts and really seeing okay, yeah, we did do a lot of things. It's exciting because I do think we are poised to access and leverage funding that's coming from different areas. There's a quality early learning plan, master plan that's being decided and looked at right now that we may stand to benefit from. We have there's definitely talk of a college savings account for every child born in California. All these things, as we kind of look at those and how they how we can use them to our advantage for the West Sacramento Home Run. Again, being one of the recognized, people, one of my favorite stories is that the intern that we had, not this past summer, but the summer before, called us up, contacted Ian and I both, and said, I'm working on this project down in San Diego, and I just told someone I worked for the West Sacramento Home Run as an intern, and he was like, what? That's a statewide model. That's amazing that you worked for them. And she said, I didn't really know that. And I was like, oh, that's probably not good that you didn't know that, but it's also really cool that somebody said that to you. So I just think, we really do, there's a lot of programs coming that are going to shape the way that we are able to best use the funds that we have available and really make our programs really, I think, efficient, and also, make them work, make them really be beneficial to our community and to our youth and children. So I welcome you can go to the last slide, which is question, comments, words of wisdom.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandine. Thanks, Justine.
Yeah, thank you. Really great news for us. I don't know that any of us are surprised. We were hopeful that we would be hearing these great things, and here we go. So thank you very much. I also appreciate you outlining some of the challenges. Some things come to mind to me that were in future years when we're getting this report, and I hope everything continues along the very positive arc. And maybe this is coming with the data manager, but for me, understanding some of the data, it helps to have, if we had 376 children, for example, who were awarded 529 accounts, out of how many?
Yes.
So I think sometimes, in the future, I think having those data points will be really helpful. Like 89 students access fee-free community college out of
how many?
How many? Because then we can also see in the future when we're adding programs, marketing, et cetera, how those things are actually impacting the population.
Yeah,
because right now we're like, oh, 89 sounds great, but if it's out of 10,000, we might go, or 376 out of 400 would be.
It's out of 85.
Right. But anyway, but I think in having a data manager, I think those questions can be asked, because those are the kinds of things where I can, this is all great, but I could even be even more excited about the
And I'm
program.
trying to recollect right now, because I know that Ashu and Linda Luna addressed this a little bit yesterday in terms of the numbers that were coming out of River City prior to the College Promise. And I want to say, and so and when we say out of the graduating class, how many of them you would like to know out of the River City High School graduating class, or all the high schools?
Just actually in general, I mean, where we can.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely, and I agree with you. I think that's a really important, and wherever I could, I tried to put, this was how many last year, and then we grew this much, or out of this money we had, and we can definitely provide that more level of detail too, I think, when we do the Measure E report and kind of put in more information about the budget and like how many numbers were served as well.
That'd be
So,
great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think this was it is a great report, and those are, if those were our worst challenges, then you managed pretty well. You managed the operation pretty well, but really congratulations to the whole team on sort of getting your arms around the piece, and then just start implementing, right? So I think our path here has been unusual, which was because we got Measure E. Measure E was born in June and passed in November of that year.
Yeah.
Just because of the timing of when the state decided not to put a quarter-cent sales tax on the ballot, so we did. So we got funding first, unlike everybody else in the world. We got funding first, and then we had to conceive of and build a program out.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been doing, and then simultaneously preparing for scale, but without over marketing, over recruiting, without having a program built in, so that you could learn and explore and test and try and learn and see along the way. So when it's all done, people will look back and what a brilliant strategy this was. But it's just that's what we had to do. And what you've done really well is being pragmatic and building out the program, so that we are then ready to do scale.
Absolutely.
And we have the systems in place, because you wouldn't want, what you wouldn't want to have is have 600 students sign up for a college savings account and then not be able to deliver it. And so to find this hit, you want to hit that hitch in the data system now, while the numbers are impressive. I mean, that's a big number, because if you think about it, there's about, depending on what age, but the general age cohort in West Sacramento is about, 600 5-year-olds or 4-year-olds or whatever, plus or minus 50 or whatever. So, hearing numbers like 400 is a big deal.
Yeah.
485 or whatever the number you said for high-quality preschool as an example. That's a huge number. But we want to make these, we want to discover little bugs in the system and whatever at this point, as opposed to farther along. But now we are at the point where getting to that scale is a real possibility, and it's what this is about. And I think, as the closing slide that you had up, as we conceive about what does success mean, I often get asked elsewhere, like, well, why, your city's so amazing that's doing this, but why is the city doing this? How did the city get into this? And do you envision at some point just turning it over to the school district? And who knows, we never talked about that really. But we're in this for more reasons than just the educational outcome numbers per se, right? So for the city, as not as opposed to, but complementary to the school district, we deal with issues like, if we're trying to, we hear from residents that they want their sons and daughters to come home after college or after they serve in the military, but they're not sure that they can either find affordable housing or that it'll be a good place to raise their own kids.
Yeah.
And so our job is to help make sure that not only that it is, but that they know. Right, and so one of the key indicators out of all of this for me is over time where people, the residents of our community and business owners and corporate location, companies say, of course, you should go, look, in the Sacramento region, you should go to Davis, Elk Grove, Folsom, or West Sacramento. Those are probably your best choices.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to get to, a place where that is understood, and that's the job of the school district, it's the job of the community college districts, it's our job too. And I think for me, that's, in some sense, the city metric is that one.
Yeah.
And honestly, I have to say, I hear less frequently than I used to, folks saying, my daughter's about to, go into high school, and I just don't know if, so we're starting to look at, whether we should relocate. Yeah. Or, my son just turned 4, and so we're now taking a look at our options, and we're not really sure. And the combination of the school district's, improvements and investments and innovations in what they're offering and delivering, but also with this program, it puts a halo around it all. And says, it's the whole community. This is a place you go because the whole community, strongly believes in and supports and does and leads the state and the country in educational opportunity. So as you continue to look at things like performance metrics and that sort of thing, don't lose that.
Yeah.
Right? It is about like how many students go to college and all that. Those are really important, but it's not to me, in some sense, the collective psyche about the value of education and our commitment as a community and the hope and optimism that this, as we said at the beginning, there's no better place to grow up and no better place to raise a family.
Absolutely.
That's what we're trying to accomplish in the program.
Absolutely.
Ms. Guerrero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Justine, I just want to say, we've been working together for quite a few years.
Yes,
And universal preschool for West Sacramento since then. And it's been such a long time. And I've seen you grow. And just listening to you today, I can listen to you for a long time because you have such an eloquent way. You're an excellent presenter.
Thank you.
And on top of that, your professionalism and your knowledge is extremely valuable for our city. Just want to commend you for all of those years and for your time and dedication and doing such a great job and caring, really, truly caring about our community.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. And looking at this program, I think these are community dollars.
Yes.
They're our taxpayer dollars. And reinvesting it back into the community is, just a great way, for helping our children. And I know you have got a lot of ideas. I want you to unleash those ideas.
Thank you.
Doing what just letting you explore all possibilities on how we can improve our children's future, how to get, their cradle to career, making them all successful. And I just feel sometimes, we could be so confined with metrics, or a model like the breaking the prison, pipeline to prison. So some of the things that I look at, just as a social worker is, are the kids that are benefiting, have some history? Who are they? And I want to know more about that.
Yeah.
Who are the children? What is their socioeconomic situation like? Is that, I know we have, just a working, family, community. And so we have some government workers and we have some, others that are struggling. And so this is going to be a huge break for breaking the cycle of poverty for some families. And I want to know, is that making a difference for both sides? And then also looking at, I know you had a hard time getting the data started, so maybe that might explain a little bit as to why we just have that number. And, if you had a broader number, you probably would put it right over here. So I know you're good with numbers. So just looking at not only that, but how we can reinvest more. How could, the teachers, the schools, surveying, what else could we do to help? Could we give more money to the instructor to purchase materials? I think there's also a program for children to take books home, that you have in here, which I think is good. To help improve our early learners. And, looking at my little grandson, read this morning, I want to see that for all of our children, before they're in the third grade, because we know reading is essential to break the, pipeline to prison. And so whatever we can do with this money to help our community, whatever we can do to break the cycle of poverty and to break, those situations where, some people can give up. Socioeconomic, draw down the funding. And also, the state is incentivized by models like ours to invest. So you see, figure out how we can make sure we can draw down that state funding or federal funding so we can stretch our dollars even farther to improve our community. So thank you very much for all you've done. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Ledesma.
Thank you. Justine, this terrific job to you and the team. And I know my kids are a little out of the range to kind of benefit from some of these at the moment, but it's great. We don't, to get the straight numbers around the kids and the families that have benefited from this. And thank you for your adaptability to kind of get into this role and is really taking ownership of it. It's showing. You're really just owning it, and terrific job. I would recommend, we don't get very many chances to talk about kind of these kind of accomplishments in public, and we do it really well when things were like, we're fixing roads or doing something, we put the Measure E or whatever. Look, we got to find a way to get this out, so I'm not sure you're going to put your 6 slides on the website just to kind of make sure people are aware. This is the accomplishments we had in 2019 would be terrific, because this is their money. This is what they invested in, and we were upfront with them about what we want to do with it. We weren't sure of the outcome. We know what the outcomes we wanted.
Yeah.
And it is, and not being in the education business, it was hard for me to kind of see those outcomes, but seeing this was just, that's what we were after. We're after getting the right folks benefiting from it. So just terrific job, and thank you very much.
Very glad. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Orozco.
Yes, thank you. Justine, same. We've been working on this since the initial stages, and as the mayor said, the funding came first, and then it's like, well, okay, what does this even mean? You have to build this whole program from scratch, and the tremendous challenges that, you experience with the data sharing agreement. I mean, I was in on those meetings too, and I remember, I'm not surprised by the challenges and the report on them. When I looked through the report, I highlighted a couple things, and I'm holding up my page right now. 89 students access fee-free community college at Sacramento. That's what I highlighted, because to me, 89, regardless of the context, was 89 that we didn't have before this program, that are getting a chance to go to community college fee-free for that year. In addition to, the other numbers that we put forth, this is, it's in its nascent stages, but even despite that, it's making an impact on the broader community. And as my colleagues mentioned, the collective psyche, right, of hope and optimism. My kids aren't going to directly benefit from this program, but I'm a huge champion for talking about it. Just the conversations that people are having in their households aren't always ones that include attending college after high school, or even completing college for that matter. And that's what I'm talking about. That's a perspective that I had growing up. I remember having a conversation with a counselor saying, I'm not going to go to college because that's just not the way we do it. And having that path interrupted by someone who I otherwise wasn't going to cross paths with. And now to think of the journeys that we can impact in kids in our city. The Kinder to College event is probably one of my most favorite ones because of that reason, because we're introducing this to children, and now we have the opportunity to say, hey kids, guess what? You can not only have a college savings account, just by being here and attending, you just graduate from a high quality preschool. And those opportunities are going to grow for you, for a lot of other kids to attend. But now, you're planting that seed that can only flourish for the possibilities that are ahead for these kids. And, to me, put 89 into any number, or pick whatever number we're using today, 376. Those are numbers that are only going to grow, and they're only going to impact. And to me, we've already made a tremendous difference, even despite the challenges. So again, as my colleague said, even though the growth wasn't overwhelming to the point where we couldn't manage it, we're still doing okay. We're doing great, in fact. So thank you. Thank you for your commitment in whatever capacity that you're in during this, trajectory and continuum of services.
I agree with Councilmember Ledesma, to the extent we can plug this. I know the mayor plugged it last weekend when we, did a ribbon cutting for the basketball floor. I mean, any chance we can to spread the word where there are little ears listening and parents who are attentive. Because frankly, West Sacramento, of all of the things we can be proud of, this is one that I think could affect every single family in this city. So another kudos from another council member to you and your staff. And, despite losing our $1 million home run man to, Oregon or wherever Ian went, you guys carried the torch and continued along with the journey. And so I can't wait for all the reports that are yet to come.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, just to close on this one, I think the state things that you mentioned they're not exogenous to this work. I mean, if you ask people in the Capitol about the journey that they went through to decide to move forward with more of a college promise statewide, or to make improved investments in college savings accounts or in college and career pathways, virtually all of them will cite West Sacramento, because many of them live here, or they wish they did, or the secretary in the office lives here, or someone else. And so just us doing our daily work to try to make a better community has inspired statewide policy change, which then we see come back to us, that helps us to move money to make even more amazing changes. So I know I'm really proud of the role that we've played, both in our own community, but also in changing, the state's investment priority for young kids in particular, but really all across the spectrum. The other is that this has been, for as me as a resident, the entire program is costing me about $20 a year, right? $20 a year, half of which is for preschool. That's our signature program, or the connections to high quality preschool, in which we are, thanks to your leadership from the very beginning. We have also been a national leader in the White House and elsewhere. Michelle Obama herself celebrating this program. So, and the other half for all these other things. Mm-hmm. So you said, okay, I'm going to guarantee that your teenager, when he or she gets old enough, is going to have a paid internship if they want it. They're guaranteeing the college savings account. They're guaranteed free college. This college scholarship that's about to come for $10. It's such an amazing investment. Yeah. But that works because it's so, and this is probably a lot of the questions that when you're referring to things, you were asking Amanda, like, why is it this way? So much of this program has been built very attentive to how to leverage and setting very clear limitations on eligibility and requirements and connections and integration and whatever, in order to squeeze the maximum value out of that $10, which you've done so well. And so it's congratulations. It's a reminder to us that sometimes in our euphoria, we can say, and now that you're doing this, if somehow we figured out how to guarantee a paid internship to everybody, now let's give everybody a violin. Well, okay, but there's no money out there to leverage violins for every student. So also setting expectations, which I want to be careful about going into schools and saying, who else needs money? Because we cannot afford that in a program like this. This is a highly, highly targeted fund to make leveraged investments in areas where we might be able to unlock really tremendous opportunity, and particularly to change the game around expectations. So fantastic job with a challenging but such a heartwarming program. I know we're all really proud of and really grateful to your work. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And thanks, Jeff, too. All right. With that, then we'll turn to council calendar. Ms. Berlin?
Good evening, Mayor, council members.
Too expensive.
A few items that are coming up the next couple of weeks. Tomorrow night is the chamber installation dinner. That'll be here in City Hall, and that starts at 5:30. Next Wednesday, PD is having their employee award ceremony in the Galleria at 5:30. And you got an invitation in your correspondence tonight for the HAMI Awards, which is Habitat for Humanity's annual awards, and those are Wednesday, January 29th at 5:30 in Sacramento, and the RSVP information is there. It also includes a +1 if you'd like to bring a +1. So that's it for me.
All right, are there questions on the calendar? City manager report?
Nothing to report tonight, but I do believe the AV equipment changes are coming soon. My mic keeps turning off on its own, so.
Oh, that's me.
Forward to that. Thank you.
I'm doing that. Okay, city, questions for the city manager? City attorney report. Staff direction from members of the council? All right, and there is one future agenda item request, so I've incorporated a request to schedule council time to hear the report of the Commission on Election Integrity that I convened, and their report is in your packets. So my request is that we schedule them for a future meeting and invite the chair and whichever other commissioners they choose to come and present their findings and recommendations to us. Is there... Do you have any comments on staff workload or the normal social issues we ask under future agenda item requests?
No, we're prepared to, I think in this case, we'd place this on presentations and allow them to make the presentation of the findings, and I think the workload on staff would be minimal for this one.
Because I don't get a paper packet, can I get a copy of that report, please? It wasn't in
It should have been an attachment to the very end.
The electronic one? It's not there.
No, I pulled it off the website. No, it's not there.
On number
Okay.
18? Oh, it's not. Okay.
No.
Right.
We'll get that to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is it possible to go directly to workshop? The only reason I'm asking is that, we're trying to, I think the intention originally was to try to, no one wants to be considering any changes or issues around election rules and that sort of thing as any closer to an actual election than necessary, so.
I believe it would be possible. I think we had planned to bring back some changes to our ordinance anyway, so I hate to commit to the exact time frame, but I think it will be possible at an upcoming meeting to do that.
Leave it to your judgment. Okay, if there's no objection, then that'll be the order. All right, is there a motion then to adjourn? It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Sandin and seconded by Councilmember Roscoe. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.